Good day! Welcome to the Sunday Show, the show that happens on Sundays, except for all the other times that stuff like this happens too. This one's just this one, and you're here for it now. I'm Forrest, and I'm here to help you get excited about whatever is about to happen, and I'm joined by my dear friend Promise. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. I just had like a total tech meltdown as we were going live. My AirPods stopped working, the screen was glitching, everything went wrong. I feel like I recovered pretty quickly, so that's a good sign.
Nice. That's fantastic. That is professionalism right there. You being able to deal with that tech meltdown, me waking up an hour ago and being ready for this show, like we together are professional people.
Look at us. I was literally probably 30 minutes before the show, I was still in bed with a cup of coffee because it's like full on family time this entire next week and a half. And like last night was hanging out with my brother till very late and I was recovering this morning. True professionals. How are you doing with the holiday season? Like are things chill? Are they crazy? What's it like?
I had a party yesterday, and nice. I am writing videos like nuts, just like crazy. I'm trying to finish the Sex and Sensibility video, which I was like, all right, awesome. I'm going to have this done by the end of the month. No problem. It's 20 solid pages. It's really good material. Then I added 10 more pages this last week, and I'm kind of going back and revamping a couple of things. So I'm still trying to get it done by New Year's Day at the latest. But like if it happens at the very beginning of January, then it does. But like it's going to be out. It's coming along really, really well. And I'm also working on another video, trying to do one more like Reacteria-y type thing by the end of this month. Because somebody sent me a DVD called The Mysterious Islands, which is this pseudo documentary about how the Galapagos prove creation or something. I went to the Galapagos and I did those tours. And so I'm seeing if I can maybe combine those videos of like the tour video and that reaction thing.
That's so good.
I'm going to call it like I went to Ecuador to prove a point if I end up doing that. I don't know if that's how it's going to be, but that would be
that's so cool. Every time you talk about the effort that goes into your content, I'm so thankful that I'm on the short end of the like content spectrum where it's just like these little like I'll just be like in the car and I think of something and then I like take a 2-second video of me like putting lip gloss on because it makes people mad and then they comment more and then my video goes more viral. And I just like say something. If I had to put more effort than that, I would not be on the internet. You're amazing.
I'll do anything for a bit. I'll be honest with you. We've got a great show for everybody today. It's going to be a lot of fun. Two quick things before we get started. Number one, for the people asking, I feel great. That video is a repost from a TikTok about fevers. I feel fantastic.
I literally was texting Arden. I was like, is the show canceled? Is somebody else co-hosting? Because all these rumors were flying that you weren't going to make the show today. And I'm like,
fevers.
No one told me.
Fevers and rumors of fevers. Thank you so much for your concern. I sincerely appreciate it. It's really, really kind of you. Next time I am sick, I will read all those comments. Also, we got a ton of shows coming up. Today, it's me and Eve. Tomorrow, it's Aaron and Paul. Chewed Gum is Alyssa and somebody. I think we don't. We've got it.
I actually think, just a small correction, Christmas Eve is also Chewed Gum. I don't know that Chewed Gum is happening. I think we're having our Christmas specials Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, because that's when we'll have the other special thing that I'm sure you're going to talk about. Sorry, everybody. Chewed Gum will be back.
No, you're fine.
Following.
Ignore the things that I've said. Also, there's the Christmas stream. We're doing a thing on Christmas Day. And then immediately after that, the 26th, Christmas Day, Eve Day, Christmas Eve, Christmas double day, the day after Christmas, Boxing Day. That's what it is.
Yes.
I think. Yeah, is TACIS, and we got Arden and Ben running that thing. And then we've got the Sunday show after dark tonight with Matt and Jimmy, and the Sunday show after dark next week is me and Jimmy. And it looks like Matt's running the regular Sunday show. We got all sorts of shows, y'all. We got all sorts of shows coming up, and you can be a part of them. All you got to do is tune in, maybe call in, definitely just smash that subscribe button. Do all the things. To the person in the chat asking me to pronounce their name, I'm not going to help you get your rocks off on that today. We're moving past it. And also to the people in the comments, I want to remind everybody watching the show that if you see any one of any number of the transphobic leeches that come to our shows to slurp up some attention from 4 or 5 people at a time while we bring in hundreds of thousands of views by sticking up and advocating for trans and non-binary people, don't give them the attention they want. Just remind them of the number and tell them what my show schedule is, because I would love to talk to some science deniers. We don't get very many creationists anymore. We've scared them away. And now we got all these transphobes hiding out in the comments, and they have the same arguments because they're the same kind of science deniers. No, you don't understand. We don't have the evidence that you say we have. Oh, we do? Well, you can't prove it. There's nothing that says that. Oh, you have a textbook that says that? Well, that's a new textbook. And you have to use a textbook from the 50s that questions plate tectonics, and then you'll know I'm right. It's a lot of fun, and it makes for great content, and we use that content to help a lot of people. So bring them in. We will continue to benefit our communities. It's going to be great.
Love that.
We've already got a ton of people lined up on the lines here. Promise, do you have a preference?
I'm good with anything. Also, I'll just, I see a lot of people in the chat asking why it says my name is Promise, because you guys are used to Eve. That is a newer thing. I did decide to start using my real name. This is the name I was given at birth. And the reason I don't use Eve anymore is because I didn't actually pick Eve. That was my handle. Like Eve was framed was my handle. And then people started calling me that, and I just kind of went with it. So if you're asking why I decided to switch, I have a lot of other projects I'm really excited about, and I wanted to use my real name on them. And so it makes sense to just let you guys know my actual name. And it's really, honestly, nice to go by a name that I have a little bit more say-so in than Eve, which I didn't pick at all. So welcome.
I like that.
To the real me.
Welcome to the new era.
But yes, but I'm good with any of these calls. This looks great. So whatever you want to start with.
Sweet chicken. Let's start with Mark. Pronouns he, him, calling in from middle igloos, just the middle of them, not the whole. That's so dumb. Who is a theist who says the prophecies of Revelation are coming true, which proves the Bible. Mark, you are on the line with Forrest and Promise. How are you doing today?
Hello.
Did you sneeze? What happened there? What's going on? Are you okay? Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Hey, have you guys read Revelation?
Yes, unfortunately.
Have you read all of it?
Yep, yes. I've read it many times. I went to ministry school. I had to write papers on it.
Yeah, whole thing in my Bible is highlighted to death.
I don't think women can be ministers. That's interesting.
Well, that's silly, but that's also not the point of your call.
Yeah, that just caught my interest.
What about Revelation? What about Revelation is coming true? And I swear to Glob, if you say wars and rumors of wars, I'm going to lose it.
It's the horror of Babylon.
The horror of Babylon is coming true.
Yes. So since you've read the Revelation, you know what that's about, right?
Can you speak a little slower? Because your voice changer is making it hard to understand you, and I want to hear what you're saying clearly.
Remind us about the story
Revelation. Well, you read it. You supposedly read it, so you can tell me.
I have read. I have it right here. I'm asking for your interpretation and your explanation, because if I talk past you, no one's going to get anywhere. That's how these calls have to go. It's just better that way. I'm cutting out 10 minutes of us going, Oh,
we just have a troll. We have a troll.
Well, good way to start the show. I mean, by you fucking around and wasting everybody's time.
Isn't this how we started the last show together? Is with somebody using a voice disguiser?
Yeah, and just
Like,
wasting everybody's
why?
time.
Yeah.
I do want to ask, like, are you actually at least a theist? Like, are you like, because you're calling this show to fuck with us, so like clearly you're getting something out of this. So like, are you at least actually like a Christian?
Yes.
Okay, well, you should know you are doing your God a disservice, because by making yourself look like a dick here on the internet, our audience is now pushed further away from your religion. We see the kind of assholes that represent this God, and we have more reason to not like the guy, let alone not believe in him. So, like, if your God is real, the fact that you're doing this, you're working against him. You're making atheists not like your whole club a little bit more, and you're making your God look bad. So that, I believe, would count as treachery. Enjoy hell for that. And that's the end of the call, Mark. Have an awesome rest of your day. Never stop learning. We're going to move right on in.
Wow, that's so disappointing. Theists,
yeah.
If you have reason for what you believe, if you believe in a God and you think you have a good reason, please call and share with us. Because what was that? That's not like... That's not a conversation. No, they're really not sending their best. Before you take the next call, I also wanted to tell everybody something about the Christmas shows that we have coming up. We are going to have the mugs, which I wasn't here for last year because I was not, believe it or not, a regular host on the line at the time. So Forrest might remember more or know more about it than I do. But I do know that we each got to design our own mug. I'm really excited about mine. I'm not going to say anything about it, but I love it. I saw yours. I love it. So we're going to have those mugs. We will be launching those, I believe, for Christmas. We'll have details to come. So be ready for those. The winner, whoever sells the most of their mug, gets their design made on a bunch of other merch. And mostly I just love to win. So I hope that you guys like my mug design.
I think,
we'll have that coming up.
I think you're going to make a great second place. Honestly, I really do. Because
all
at the end of the day,
all right.
When people see my mug, they're going to fucking buy it.
I'm not going to lie. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I'm very happy with how it's coming out. It's not quite there yet, but it's damn close. I do want to say also, 2% of the chat poll says that yes, they have evidence for God, and yes, they are calling. That's 2% of literally all Americans who are the people who watch this show. So that's a lot of people. That's hundreds of thousands, millions of people that should be calling in right now, and yet we're gonna have to like go to a non-combative theist call, which I'm not too upset about. But like, we thought we'd have people bringing in evidence.
But where are you guys? Yeah.
Instead, we have someone who is genuinely delightful that we've talked to several times, who's just fucking awesome and who I'm excited to have back. It's Emma, pronouns they and she, calling in from Scratchy Crabs, who is a theist and is an ex-missionary and is wondering a little bit about how to do, like, how missionary work kind of affects the world. In this call screen here, she says, ex-missionary wondering how Christian hegemony of the West affected your deconstruction process. At what point did you consider yourself deconverted from religion altogether rather than deconstructed? Phenomenal question. Emma, you're on the line with Forrest and Promise. How you doing?
Hey, I'm all right. I just did a real quick small correction. I go by Emma Grace.
Oh, pardon me.
Not just Emma.
I'm so sorry. I only have Emma here on the call screen. That's my fault.
Also like a kind of prophetic blessing or some shit that means universal grace. And
nice.
I'm trying to kind of own that.
Nice. My name is Promise Joy, and it was supposed to be about the Bible verse, the promise of the joy of harvest, because I was going to win many souls over for God, and now here I am.
I was supposed to be a compassionate and empathetic prophet.
Yes. Well, love it. That's lovely. That's a lovely sentiment.
If we can get Emma Grace's name fixed on the lower third, please, that would be really cool. Sorry, we only have Emma here in the call screen. Don't know what happened there, but we'll get it fixed on the screen for you as well. Emma Grace, what did you want to talk about today? I've got what I've read here, but like, I just want to make sure that I'm getting in your own words. I think Promise would probably be a lot better to answer this question than I would be.
Yeah, I do think this is more directed at Promise today. I'm just wondering, at what point did you consider yourself like fully deconverted rather than just like on a process of deconstruction? I know it's not like a light switch moment that people decide they have when they get saved or the Holy Spirit enters them and stuff like that. But I was a missionary for about a decade and an evangelical missionary for about 6 of those. And it feels like deconstruction has just been very long and minuscule. But I think what's difficult for me is separating what's religious educational dogma, what's cultural dogma that might not be objectively moral in itself, like capitalism, and what's reasonably general universal truth, given the historical enmeshment of some of the former two things.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. You know, it's interesting because when my process of maybe I'll call it doubt started, I didn't know about the term deconstruction. I didn't know this was a thing. I was very much on my own with all of it, and it was actually a pretty short process because I think what happened, looking back, is I had questions my entire life that were never fully answered, or the answers I was given were not true. And I went through maybe like a couple month period of time where I was desperate to know what was true. I just wanted to know what was true because I was getting so many mixed signals. This was when Trump had been elected president, and the leaders in my life were, rooting on one of the worst people I had ever heard of and like basically worshiping him. It didn't make sense to me. So I was like, well, I'm not going to leave my faith because these people suck at it. I'm going to become the best at it. I want to be like close to God. I want to know God. I want to know what's true about him in the Bible. The problem is through that process, I very quickly I pulled at like a string on a sweater and just undid the whole thing. And so honestly, for me, it was kind of an overnight thing. Like there was a couple months leading up to it where things were a little dicey, but I mostly still very much believed. And then one night, really, I had a moment where I was just really honest with myself, and a couple of things kind of clicked in my head and stopped clicking. And I was like, do I believe that any God exists? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I definitely don't think this evangelical God exists. And I just don't think I have reason to believe any God at all exists. I didn't know to call myself an atheist. It took a couple of years for that even, but I just knew I didn't believe in any gods. And that happened immediately. I mean, I bought a one-way flight the next day and left and went to the other side of the country because I was in ministry school. So it was actually a pretty sudden switch. But I think that's because I've always been that way, to where when something isn't right anymore, I don't want to be participating in it. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, that's how it was for me. I know it's very unique for each person.
Yeah, I did. I wasn't in ministry school. I was on the field and had to like lose my housing and my livelihood. And I think a lot of people don't understand that sometimes, but
yeah,
still was definitely a theist, even though I knew what I was doing was like didn't feel right, didn't line up with what I was seeing around me and what I was reading. And just from a sociocultural background, I have the misfortune of sociocultural anthropology background, but also Bible and theology. And so my head is just like constantly a back and forth. At what point were you comfortable calling yourself an atheist, since you said that took a little longer?
After I had listened to probably like my 10th episode of Matt Dillahunty debating people online, because I discovered, I guess it was AXP and him and Dave Warnock talking, they just made sense. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any gods. I had grown up thinking that an atheist was a positive emotional claim, because that's what I had been taught. Also, that no atheist actually existed, that everybody secretly believes, So I don't know that I necessarily even felt uncomfortable with it. I did feel uncomfortable being like publicly saying it because I knew the stigma that came with it. So it was like a little, like even when I first started on TikTok, I didn't call myself an atheist. It took a little bit of time, maybe like a couple months. And then I was like, fuck it. That's what I am. And I'm really frustrated that I wouldn't call myself something just because of how other people have been lied to about this very benign term. So if I can help change that by just owning the label, even though I hate labels, but it's a word. It's a word that tells people that I don't believe in any gods. which is really me doing them a kindness to respond to the claims and saying like, yeah, actually, I don't believe that way. There are certain people that don't believe that. So I don't know. For me, I didn't put so much thought into the process. I just kind of went with it. I was in the moment. I was following what felt intellectually honest to me. And I wouldn't recommend doing it any other way, because otherwise you are going to come up with feeling conflicted or feeling like you forced yourself or feeling scared or not aligning with what my whole point was. I wanted to align like in my head with what's out here. And that's how it worked out. I know that's very abstract. I'm sorry, but hopefully that some of that is resonating with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.
I don't have a deconstruction story from Christianity specifically, but my wife does. When I met her, she called herself Baptist-costal. She was very, very out there, the most religious person in her very religious family. Went to a Bible college and studied the Bible for a little while, all with the intention, I believe at the time, she wanted to get into dentistry, so that she could travel to different parts of the world and you give away free medicine and also spread the gospel and stuff through these mission trips and stuff. And like that was what her major life goal was. And for her, the big thing was education that changed her mind. She was not allowed to learn certain things. And when she first got with me, we started watching science documentaries that I was excited about. And we watched Into the Universe with Stephen Hawking. And it's this like 4-part little mini series that was, just a kind of a made for TV popularization thing. And the first one is all about aliens and why they probably exist. And the very beginning of the very first episode is just starting at planet Earth and zooming out to the whole universe. And we watched this zoom out, and she's like, play that again. Let's see, because she had never known that the universe was that big. She was like, yeah, there's the Earth, and then there's the solar system, and then like heaven or whatever, you know what I mean? I don't know what exactly where her boundary line was, but she certainly had no idea about the scale of like, billions of light years and this craziness. And so she was like, watch it again. We watched it 5 times back to back to back to back. She came over the next day. We watched it again and again and again and again. She would call me on the road driving like, we are nothing. We're nothing. And I'm like, yeah, babe, I know, right? It's crazy. And then eventually one day she was just kind of like staring, and she looked really concerned. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I can't figure out what the hell a person is. I can't figure out what any of this is, what this, none of this matters. And I was like, yeah, dude, it's great. Right. And then finally she kind of hit this wall, and she was like, there's definitely life elsewhere, and they can't all have a Jesus, and there's no way we're that special, and like none of this makes any damn sense. And she had the benefit of being raised, being taught that every other religion is wrong anyway, and so she already, when she got rid of Christianity, there was nothing else to go to. And so there was a brief moment there where she was more of an atheist than I was, because I was still holding on to some magical beliefs from my childhood. I was raised pagan. And she was like, okay, well, I guess there's no God, and I guess that none of this is real. And she turns to me, she's like, why the fuck do you believe in ghosts? And I'm like, I don't know. And like, we just fell apart for me too. And we talked it out.
That's amazing.
It was great. And so we just, both of us, she deconstructed so much more than I had to, but we finally became atheists together, full-fledged, real, actual atheists together. She beyond that, as far as like when I started using these terms, like I was comfortable with atheist, but I started using words like anti-theist, and I started being comfortable with these kinds of conversations because of a guy named Christopher Hitchens, who you with an anthropology background will probably like a lot. He's a bit sensationalist. He was a journalist rather than, that was his job. But like, holy shit, he's not wrong about a lot of the things he talks about. And he wrote a book called God Is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything. The full audiobook read by him is free on YouTube. And I think you would enjoy it quite a bit based on the things you've talked about on these shows.
Okay, well, I've got a 14-hour drive tomorrow, so maybe I should listen to an audiobook.
Hell yeah.
That's perfect. I'm in the middle of reading that book. Yeah, I'm in the middle of reading it, and it's absolutely incredible. I love Christopher Hitchens so much. I think you'll like it too. If nothing else, it's fascinating, and it will make your 14 hours go a little faster, hopefully.
I think
I'm in the middle of the dawn of everything, but which is kind of an anarchist anthropology book, and I'm liking that, but I can set that aside for
I've got that biscuit right here next to my desk because I fucking loved anarchist theory when I was studying anthropology. I still love it to this day. This is a fucking tasty book, yo.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well,
awesome.
I appreciate y'all so much, and I'm really glad to hear a little bit more of Promise's story. Thank you guys.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
We love having you on the show, Emma Grace. Call back anytime. Keep us updated on your journey.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye. She's super cool. She calls in from time to time and has amazing questions every time. And this was the most she's just wanted to hear, like, you know, from one of the hosts. Like, usually,
a personal story.
She'll usually bring like some really, really pointed questions about a lot of things, about Western
That's
influence,
awesome.
about you know, cultural appropriation, about colonialism inherent to missionary work, all sorts of things.
She should call Chewed Gum sometimes. We love, everybody on the line likes those kind of calls, but I think that would fit in really well with our show.
I would watch the shit out of that. We've got a couple more Theist calls on the line. One of them's probably a troll. The other one doesn't appear to be. So we'll go with the non-troll first.
Okay.
And if that's okay with you, unless you want to burn through the other one first.
No,
whatever.
No, are you talking about Anish?
No, Anish seems like the not troll.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, no, that sounds like a great place to start. I think I've spoken with Anish before, so we'll find out.
Sweet chicken. All right, we're going to talk to Anish, pronouns he, him, calling all the way from Dubai, who is a theist who wants to prove the existence of the God of Islam. Anish, you are on the line with Forrest.
Hi guys, how are you?
Hello.
Hi guys, how are you?
I'm awesome, man. How are you?
We're ready to hear you prove the existence of God.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually have a philosophical argument to prove the existence of God. But before that, I would like to know what kind of evidence you are looking for. Is that argument from induction, deduction, abduction?
So,
because if you're looking for a scientific proof.
Yeah. So it would need to be something like at least empirical for me to like understand where you're coming from. Because if you give me just like, I have this feeling, I had this vision, there's this prophecy that's kind of vague, like that's really not going to do much for me. I can't tell you for sure what one bit of evidence would convince me. But I'd like to hear your best, like something that really, really, really matters. That you think is like not just a reason for you to believe, but a reason that you think anybody should believe.
Okay, so do you think empirical evidence is the only way to know truth?
No, I mean, like empirical evidence is the one that matters them. Empirical evidence is what matters the most to me. Like anecdotal evidence is unreliable. So like if you tell me like I saw God, I'm not going to say you're certainly wrong. I'm just going to say I have no reason to believe you. The same reason if you say you saw a Bigfoot. It doesn't matter to me.
But we can use deductive argument as well, right? Using laws of logic.
Sure. We can try to use some laws of logic. It's a little bit difficult to hear you. If you could try to pull back from the mic a little bit, it's kind of blown out for me, but like I'm ready to hear whatever you have. Like I said, I want your best argument. It's a little better now. Just what's your best argument?
Yeah, this argument is called argument from limit. Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, the thing is, what I'm saying is, whatever the human being can, because for us to do the scientific method, we will have to observe the physical objects, right? So whatever the human beings can observe has to be definable to our perception. So whatever is definable to human beings has limits, which means we can only define a thing in terms of mass, momentum, speed, velocity, length, width, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So I can always ask why that particular limit, why that particular length, why not a little higher or lower, why that particular width, why that particular dimension, so on and so forth, for every kind of limit. Okay. So my argument goes like this: anything that has a limit is dependent on something else to define or determine that limit. That's the first point. So are you with me till now?
I'm understanding you, yeah.
Yeah. So anything that is a limit is dependent on something else, which means it is limited by something else. Otherwise, we can ask why that particular limit. It could have been some other way in all possible world. So if there is a particular limit, we should ask it is dependent on something else to define that limit. The second point is everything in the physical ontology has some kind of a limit. Therefore, to avoid to avoid the violation of two laws of logic, law of non-contradiction and law of excluded middle, we will have to come to the conclusion of existence of a thing outside physical ontology as the necessary thing. Which means to avoid infinite regress of limited things depending on another limited thing, we will have to come to the conclusion of existence of a thing outside physical ontology as the necessary thing.
Okay, so let me just repeat back what I'm hearing just to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding you. You're saying that there's three premises.
Yeah.
Number one is that everything that has some sort of a limit must have that limit imposed upon it by something else. That limit has to be set or contingent upon something else. The second thing is that everything in the universe has some sort of physical limit or another. And so, third premise is that somebody, God, must be the one setting those limits, something outside of the universe that has this.
No, God is the next point. God is I didn't say God. I didn't say God. That is the next point. That I will come to that later.
Oh, okay. It seemed like I figured that was kind of the ending.
That there must be necessity.
Okay, so I'll just remove the word God. So then the third premise is that something is setting those limits, and then the point 4 is that that thing is God.
No, I have another argument to prove that thing is God. That's a different argument I have for that.
Why doesn't why are you ending with something that sets limits? How come that thing gets special privileges?
No, using laws of logic, we will have to definitely come to the conclusion of the existence of a thing outside physical ontology. Otherwise, it violates both law of non-contradiction and law of excluded middle. We cannot keep on having limited things depending on another limited thing. Because whatever we can perceive in human perception must have some kind of definable attributes, like mass, momentum, speed, velocity, length, width, so on and so forth.
Right. I get that, but Anish, are you familiar? I don't know if they have this in Dubai, but are you familiar with the children's game called Rock, Paper, Scissors?
Which one?
It's called Rock, Paper, Scissors.
This is the first premises of the first point of the argument. If you agree that there must be a necessary thing, we don't know what that thing is. I'm not saying it's God. But if you agree to this necessary thing, my next argument would be to prove that it's God. That's a different argument.
I asked you a question. Are you familiar with the American children's game called Rock, Paper, Scissors? If you're not, it's okay. I can explain what I'm talking about. I would like to know if you are familiar with what I'm talking about.
Familiar with Rock, Paper, Scissors?
Yes. Have you ever heard of that before? Do you know how the game works?
I have seen some YouTube videos, but I'm not familiar with that game. Yeah.
Okay, so let me explain it very briefly. The game is really simple. You can make one of 3 different shapes with your hands. One of them represents a rock, one represents a piece of paper, the other represents a pair of scissors.
Okay.
And the game is that you and one other person, both throw out one of these symbols at the same time. And whoever has the dominant symbol wins the game. So it's a very, very quick, easy children's game. And the thing is, paper beats rock, scissors beats paper, and rock beats scissors. And so you have just 3 things. Each one of those 3 things is limited by another one of those 3 things. So the game is completely contained. There is no extra 4th thing that needs to apply these limits. The reason why I bring this up as an example is because that appears to be what's going on in the universe. You talk about the limit of, say, for example, the speed of light. Well, it happens to be the mass energy equivalence that is causing this limit of the speed of light, as far as I can. I'm not a physicist, but like that's a thing that is also within the universe that is causing this limit. So when you say everything in the universe has these limits and every one of these limits must come from somewhere else, I don't understand why you must then say, therefore, there must be something outside of the universe causing these limits, when another thing within the universe could be causing those limits. And these limits could be reciprocal in this way. It doesn't have to be some extra thing giving in the way. The universe could be one giant game of rock, paper, scissors. Here's mass, here's energy, here's velocity, here's length, here's width, and they all bounce off of each other and contain each other. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay. Can I respond?
Yes, please.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, the thing that differentiates something from nothing is some kind of a definable attribute. So, whatever the definable attribute that differentiates a thing from nothing, we can always ask why that particular limit, why not some other limit. That's what I'm saying. For us human beings, in our perception, for us to say
really bad. Can you please repeat that sentence?
Call a thing as a thing. Yeah, for us human beings, for us to call a thing as a thing, to prescribe something as a thing, that thing must have some kind of a definable attribute. That definable attribute differentiates it from nothing.
Anish, are you listening to Forrest?
So
because Anish, I'm talking. Anish, I feel like you're not listening to us. You haven't answered either of our questions that we've asked so far. And then you are responding to Forrest. Forrest just took the time to explain something to you, but you're just saying something. You're not listening to what he's saying. And it's a little frustrating because we're trying to have a conversation. I'm still talking. So we're trying to have a conversation with you. And if you just keep saying, it sounds like you're just following a script and that you're just going through the motions and reading it through and sticking to this thing instead of engaging in the conversation with us. This needs to be something where we have some back and forth and we're trying to seek understanding from each other on what we just said. And I'm not getting that from you.
No, it's because of the language barrier. That's why I'm not understanding what's
right, which is why we need to slow down. I appreciate you calling despite the language barrier, but that's why we need to slow down and we need to listen to what each other is saying, because Forrest and I just took a long time to listen to what you said, and we still haven't been able to get anywhere in the conversation because some of the basic questions we presented back, you haven't responded to still. So for example, Forrest just took a lot of time to explain something to you, and you haven't even acknowledged if that made sense to you or not. And if it didn't make sense to you, that's fine, but let us know so that we know where to go in the conversation.
No, I didn't understand what he's trying to tell me, because I thought he's saying there is no limit or something like that. That's why I told him.
That's not what I said.
That's not what he said. So that's why it's important that we slow down. That's not what he was saying. So let's let him talk to you again.
Okay.
Yeah. So the question that I asked you immediately was, does that make sense? What I just said, and you immediately went into something else. So I'll repeat. I'm not saying there is no limit to anything. I'm saying that the limits for one thing in the universe can be imposed by another thing in the universe. And it seems to be the case that all of the limits in the universe are imposed by other things within the universe. So there's no need for anything outside of the universe, a god or whatever, to bring these limits in if they're already present. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's the same point Matt Dillahunty asked me. We had a discussion regarding this argument, and then that's the reason I said to avoid infinite regress of limited thing depending on another limited thing, you will have to come to the conclusion. Because we cannot go on for an infinite regress of limited thing depending on another limited thing for that's why we will have to stop somewhere where it doesn't have any kind of limit. But it cannot be from the physical ontology, because in physical ontology everything has a limit.
That is why I gave the example of the game, which you may not have been familiar with, but just thing number 1 limits thing number 2, thing number 2 limits thing number 3, thing number 3 limits thing number 1. So now
it doesn't have to be a hierarchy. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a direct hierarchy like that. There's like a system.
Yes.
Okay, but you're saying thing number 1 doesn't have any kind of limit?
No, I'm going to say what I said again. Thing number 1 limits thing number 2. Thing number 2 limits thing number 3. Thing number 3 limits thing number 1. So all 3 things have a limit, and all 3 things are creating a limit. And there's no 4th thing that needs to add a new limit. Do you understand?
Okay. Out of these 3 things, which thing began the first movement? Because there is a problem of movement and specificity. I have an argument called movement and specificity. Using that, I can prove this is God. because I can always
okay, so
ask
then are we now ignoring the limit point? Are we moving past that?
No. It still stands there. Because if you say the first thing limited the second thing, I can ask why it limited it in one particular way, why not some other way? And if you
okay, but that's
say
a different
that's
a different thing than what you originally brought up.
No. Your argument actually is contradicting your argument is actually a logical contradiction. You are saying the first limited the second limited the third. What I'm saying is, where did it begin in the first place? In the beginning, whichever first or second limit started the limit or started the process, whether it had a limit in the beginning. That's what I'm asking.
Right. Does
in the
it matter?
beginning, before the process even started.
Okay, so yes, you are moving on to something
you're
completely
actually
different.
Putting
The frustrating thing here is that, like, Anish, what you're basically saying is just 3 or 4 different ways of getting to what we call the Kalam cosmological argument. X, Y, Z, whatever thing, some property of the universe is eternal. Therefore, there must be something that caused it to be that way. And like it seems like you're giving us this weird runaround where we're talking about limits, and then we're talking about origins, and then we're talking about all these other things, when really what you're saying is the laws of the universe must have come from some guy. And I don't understand why that's where you're going, and without just being honest about that, and why that's what you'd say in the first place.
Yeah, you haven't proven any of this to me so far. You've made more claims than even the original claim, and so I'm still not seeing anything to back these. There's so many presuppositions happening, and this idea that there has to be a limiter and all of this, but then you leave out this thing that you're saying that inevitably your argument is going to get to, which is that therefore God and all of this, but then none of this applies to that God. And I don't understand why you give these special privileges to this one thing because there must. But you're not able to define for me why there must. Why? Why does this thing get special privileges that none of these other things that we already have here and we can see and we have answers for don't get?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I will prove to you why that thing must be God. This is my second argument, okay? And the argument goes like this.
Okay.
This is called movement and specificity argument, which means in the beginning, okay, we can call it as the ultimate necessity, which means the necessary thing was there and the universe was created. So the universe was created at a particular time. So there is a question as to why that particular time, why not some other time? And then it was created in a particular way. Why that particular way, why not some other way? Then the third question comes, if the ultimate necessity created it out of its own, it created due to an internal mechanical process. Okay, there are only 3 possibilities. Either it created due to an internal mechanical process.
You're doing what I just said.
We will have to ask, where did that...
So Anish, we're going to end up wasting... No, we're going to end up wasting time if I don't interrupt you right now, because you're doing what I just said. You're still just presenting these things. You're sticking to a script, which is also a little bit frustrating because I'd rather hear why you actually believe in a God. You're sticking to your arguments, whatever you want to call it. This is not a conversation back and forth, and you're not responding to the points that we're making. So you are still doing what I just said. You're presenting all these things and saying, well, so then there must, but you're not filling in those blanks of why there must be, and you still aren't doing it with this argument. Forrest, I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add in there, but
I'm kind of over it because Anish, like we keep explaining to you why your argument doesn't make any sense, and you keep just saying, well, here's the thing, and then you say the same argument again, and you're not addressing the fact that even if we agree with you, even if I agree that there's this specific point in time and that the universe could have started at any time, but it was this time, and it could have been in any way, but it was this way, and all of this somehow points to some guy that made the universe. You're not even stopping there. You're saying, and also, I know who the guy is, and I know the guy's name, and I know what the guy wants, and it has to be the God of Islam, and here's this Muhammad, and here's all this stuff. And like, you're adding all this extra baggage on, because that's what I have here written on the call screen that you put in. So like, I don't see a point.
I didn't say anything about Muhammad. I know the nature of that God, because nobody can know the nature of that ontology. I'm not claiming to know the nature of that ontology.
You are calling in as a Muslim, though. You are calling in as a Muslim, and it says here on your call screen
no Muslim on the planet would claim to know the nature of God. No Muslim on the planet would claim to know the nature of that ontology.
I don't see a reason to continue because it sounds like you're not interested in having a conversation back and forth. You're just interested in saying what you wanted to say. So maybe there is a language barrier, and I can forgive that there's a language barrier. That may be the issue, but I need you, if you call back in, if you don't understand something we're saying, please let us know so we can reiterate it and make it easier.
No, but I believe I answered Forrest.
Anish, you're already not listening again. That's like, I would tell you to call Chewed Gum sometimes so we can have another conversation, but you're not listening. And that's really frustrating. We haven't been able to get anywhere in 18 minutes and 37 seconds now because you're not engaging back and forth. And the only thing you do is say, no, wait. And then you just keep repeating the special pleading that we have called out already. So if you want to go back and listen to this call and reevaluate how you handle these calls moving forward, and if you want to approach them without interrupting us in the future, then you can call back. But I think this was a really unproductive call, unfortunately.
All right. Have an awesome rest of your day, Anish. Bye-bye. Yeah, it's like I commend the guy. His English is better than my most languages. And so like he's doing a great job.
Yeah, he was talking really fast. That was my issue, not so much anything else. Yeah. But well, I mean, obviously the way the argument was going that's a whole nother thing. Matt and I actually talked to him. You can imagine that went really differently with Matt and I talking to him, but it was the exact same argument, and in that it's not really an argument. Again, it's just throwing out these claims and hoping that one of them like sticks to the wall and that we go with one of them, and then they can be like, see, so there, it's a god, and that's just not convincing. So. Anyways, maybe we have some other cool theists to talk to. What do you think?
We actually do. Yeah, no, we've still got the one probably troll, but we've got two others that seem reasonable. Let's talk to girl. How about Frank? Pronouns he, him. Calling in from yes. From Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, a different god, who says he is a young Earth creationist and that the complexity of the human eye couldn't evolve gradually, and has some questions. So let's talk about all this stuff. Frank, you're on the line with Forrest and Promise. How are you doing today?
You hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. How are you doing, Forrest?
Never had a bad day.
How you doing?
What was that?
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. What do you want to talk to us about today?
I wanted to talk about the amazing creation of the human eye.
I've dissected a few. Let's talk about it. Sure. What's your issue with them?
So you understand if our nervous system understood that the eye was there, it'd actually attack it and kill it.
No, that's not your nervous system. You're talking about your immune system, and that's also kind of hyperbole, but that's a totally different thing. Also, your mic is chopping quite a bit. I don't know if you're like really close to it or if you just have a bad connection, but if you could just try to check that would be really cool.
Gotcha.
So here's the thing. That's your immune system, not your nervous system. And also it's really important to remember that that's not even close to the only time that happens. So for example, anytime someone gets pregnant, what's going on with that? There's like some weird echoey sounds. It sounds like you're crinkling up like a candy wrapper made of goblins onto your phone. Can you fix whatever's going on with your phone so we can talk? Cool. It sounds like maybe your voice modulator is fucking up. So if say for example any person who gets pregnant, humans have a hemochorial placenta. That means that the placenta actually invades into the uterine tissue itself, and it causes that placenta to literally be butting up against the blood supply of the person who is pregnant. And so you've got this blood supply literally touching the outer wall of the placenta. That's a major issue for your immune system. And so you have to activate certain genes in order to suppress your own immune system so that your body does not eat your own placenta and your own fetus. And so like there's lots of situations in which, targeted immunosuppression is just a feature of our biology and our physiology. In that particular case, it actually comes from endogenous retroviruses, not from any kind of divine thing.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, science is pretty cool. Would you like to talk about the evolution of the eye? Because there's a lot there that demonstrates that it certainly is an intelligent design.
Well, I'm just curious if we've ever actually observed an eye evolving in a lab.
So you understand why that's a silly ass question, right? Or do you not? Do you genuine question? Do you actually think that's a hard hitting question?
Science should be repeatable.
Okay, so you either you are a lazy troll or you don't understand how evolution works. Here's a really cool thing: is that if we find a fossil, right, or it's actually take it out of that. Let's talk about murder, right? If we see a murder, right, we go and find somebody dead in their house. Do we have to see that murder happen several different times to call it repeatable and then do forensic science?
Beyond a reasonable doubt, yes.
No. So that's the thing about evidence, is that we can look for fingerprints, footprints, blood spatter patterns, motives, blah, 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 and we can build together a picture that will get you beyond a reasonable doubt to understand that this, who did this murder. It doesn't mean you have concrete, perfect, absolute proof the way you would have if you saw the thing, but science doesn't deal in proof. Science deals in evidence that can take you beyond a reasonable doubt. So, yeah, if we have a murder victim here, we don't have to watch the same murder happen 3 times to get beyond a reasonable doubt. That's just dumb. You understand?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but
so
how does that explain why One Piece is better than Naruto?
So similarly, we don't have to watch an eye evolve because that would be impossible. We just have to have the right evidence that shows us that it did to get beyond a reasonable doubt. And the evidence that we have for the evolution of eyes and arms and wings and all these other things that creationists claim are beyond, irreducibly complex or whatever, is well beyond the reasonable doubt stage. We're way, way, way past that. We're arguing now about how eyes evolved, at what time eyes evolved, how many different times eyes evolved, not whether or not they evolved.
Gotcha.
Do you have any specific questions, or is this the end of your script?
Well, I don't think any of that is evidence. I think that's just you saying things, saying big words.
I haven't given any evidence yet.
So, Frank, I have a question. Is the reason you believe in a God because you think evolution isn't true?
Yep.
That's why you believe in a God? Because even when I didn't believe. I was homeschooled. I had a terrible science education growing up. And so even when I stopped believing in a God, I wasn't sure about evolution. It was still this like elusive, weird, scary thing to me. But I was content with saying, I don't know. And I'm just confused as to why your inability to understand or vibe with evolution makes you believe in an entire God. Or did you believe that only 2 options are possible? Either there's a God or evolution?
Those are the only credible options.
Credible according
that's
to
just
what?
Lazy.
Yeah.
There's
Credible
theistic
according to the
evolution.
Catholic Church.
What if this is a simulation?
Yeah. And what if God used evolution to get us to where we are? What if God drove evolution? Or what if God started the universe in such a way that evolution would happen all by itself? Like dominoes.
What if?
Precisely.
Right.
So that's why my question for you is, why did you automatically go to a theistic? Also, which God do you believe in? Can I ask that?
Well, you said a Catholic Church a second ago.
Okay, so you even got specific with which God you believe in. So I'm curious as to why you believe in that God. And if it's literally just because you don't believe in evolution, that's one of the worst reasons I've heard.
Why?
Because of the reasons I just listed.
Yeah, because it's just intellectually lazy and it rules out a lot of other options. And also, just like with Anish a second ago, you're not just saying, I believe in a God. You're saying, I believe in this specific God from this specific interpretation of this specific translation, this specific tradition, this specific church, this specific idea from this specific holy book. It's not just, I don't believe in evolution, therefore some guy must have done it. It's, I know the guy's name, and I know the guy's kid, and I know how the guy wants me to have sex, and whether or not the guy wants me to masturbate, and whether or not I'm allowed to wear mixed fabrics because of the guy, and like who I'm allowed to have butt stuff with because of the guy, and like all this stuff that the guy does and doesn't like. Like that's what you're bringing in. It's not just like, I don't know about how life became so diverse, therefore I'm going to incorporate some magical thinking. It's literally like, no, you don't understand. I get that the entire endeavor of medicine, agriculture, forensics, biology in general, all hinges upon evolution. But have you heard about the magic space guy that doesn't want you touching yourself because he's pretty fucking cool? Like that's what you're actually calling in with, and that's just incredibly lazy.
Yeah, I'd much rather hear an actual argument for why you believe what you believe.
Do you really think that evolution created the human vibe?
Are you able to engage in this conversation, or did you just not listen to anything we just said?
I have a tremendous amount of evidence that demonstrates that's the case. You haven't heard any of it yet because we've just been getting through the bare minimum of how to have an intelligent conversation about this.
Well, I'll be honest, a lot of what you guys are saying is going straight over my head, so I would appreciate it if you could dumb it down a little bit for me.
No one is surprised. No one is surprised. Here's the thing. We're going to move on so that you have time to find another IP address and another voice changer so you can continue wasting everybody's fucking time. But the thing is, man, we've actually done some good here because with this call, there's a lot of people watching who actually say the shit that you're trying to pretend you actually believe. Right. And this is a communication method for them. There are people who actually get hung up on that stuff, and they're now learning. So thank you for helping us bring more people away from your shitty religion and teach them a little bit more about science, scientific thinking, and the scientific method. Maybe someday we'll actually talk about the evidence for the evolution of the eye. You can go down to any one of the other calls where I've talked about that stuff, or my videos on the YouTubes. Or, next time you call back in to be a troll, maybe we'll cover it then. Who knows? It'll be a lot of fun.
Maybe next time he'll call in and tell us why bananas are proof of God. I would love that. That would be a fun one. If you're going to troll, please pick something exciting and interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing for me is like, it's I'm happy to there's a reason we didn't drop the call immediately. It's because, like I said, I have met people who sincerely, earnestly believe the things that guy was pretending to believe. And so I'm happy to actually get a little bit of that out there, that it can still be beneficial. But if you're just going to be a troll, be a funny one. You know what I mean?
Right, and he couldn't even go back and forth with us or anything. So
it's just lazy. Lazy trolls is the problem. When I was a kid, trolls were fun.
Right. Maybe there will be some other theists. We do have some lines open. We have another theist caller we can get to, but I'm eager to I feel not bored. I love this show. This is great. But I was hoping for some actual, Anish was the most we got to get into a conversation so far, and that's just a little frustrating for me. So I would love for a theist to call and actually present us an argument, or just present us with why they believe what they believe without following some script or some argument they think will win us over. I just want to know what you believe and why. I think you and I have some of our most fun conversations with people like that, when we all leave the conversation feeling like, cool, that was nice. Let's talk again sometime, So I'd love one of those theists to call. In the meantime,
well, I've got high hopes for Terry, pronouns he, him, calling in from Nipple Crust, who is a theist who says that he can prove God's existence. Let's talk to Terry. Terry, you're on the line with Forrest and Promise. How are you doing today? Terry's been murdered. All right. So, and this is the frustrating. I can't tell if this bro left his TV on or if he's just trolling us. Let's give him one more chance. Terry, you're on the line. Are you there? Nope.
Just nothing.
Terry's being murdered in the background. This is what I'm talking about. Lazy trolls. Let's talk to Dirk. Dirk's calling in from Cavernous Anus, who's a theist, pronouns he, him, says that it's real and we fear his understandings of things. Let's roll through one more troll call. Let's see what happens. Dirk, you're on the line with Forrest and Promise.
Forrest and Promise. Promise. We didn't get to finish our conversation because Jimmy kept rudely interrupting us the last time we tried to speak. Remember that? You remember that?
I host the show regularly. I can't say that I remember at all. I talk to a lot of people on here, and a lot of them interrupt and have all kinds of things happen. So, nope, okay. I don't. But if you want to just tell us, I'm more interested in you telling us your understanding of things or whatever it is you want to present to us today.
Yeah, okay, let me get into it. Okay, so I think that we are all looking at it the wrong way. I think that there is external guidance that we're getting. I think when we dismiss the ancient people's claims of guidance, I think we are putting our Western viewpoint of the way things are onto how they perceive things happening. And I think to have an honest discussion about how people developed, we have to accept the claims that they made and sort of investigate how they could logically come to those claims. And so with that, I'm asking if you believe in the possibility of aliens. Promise.
Why are you talking to me specifically? Are we both allowed to answer this? We're both here.
Oh, yeah. You can. I was just wanted to continue talking with you because I didn't get to really hear your thoughts on stuff. So, but Forrest, if you want to jump in, please, Forrest, please do.
Yeah, we're both hosting, and I don't remember the conversation that we had at all. So we're starting from scratch here. So that's how I need this conversation to be approached.
I absolutely would say, so yes, the universe is very, very big. It's ridiculous to assume that this is the only planet that has any kind of life on it. I don't have any reason to believe that any aliens have like visited our planet or are like controlling the government or any of the other crazy shit. But like other life existing in the universe seems inevitable. That seems like a given.
Okay,
yeah, sure. I don't actively hold belief in aliens, but do I think that there's other life forms? As Forrest said, probably.
Yeah, almost certainly.
And other life. I don't even want to say life forms because I don't even know what I'm talking about. But anyways, go ahead.
It's a whole thing.
Okay, so is it possible that we have misinterpreted gods, at least the gods that we interacted with? And I'm not talking about the God who created the universe, because we can get into that in a second, but at least for our intermediaries, for human development, would it be possible that in the ancient days there were gods that we don't have now?
How are we defining God?
Yeah, well, it would be... I'm sorry, that was a good question. You should go ahead.
Yeah, beings, like higher beings with greater technology, maybe intellect, maybe not, but at least beings that we misinterpret as being somehow divine in the context of our limitations.
I don't currently.
This is what it is.
Yeah, I don't have any reason to believe any of that existed. So I don't.
Yeah, there would be significant evidence for it, and there just isn't. And the evidence that is presented for ancient alien conspiracy theories is always like, here's a cave drawing we don't understand, or brown people did something exciting. And like, I'm not compelled by it.
I want to get into that because I feel like that's one of the major arguments against it. And I want to acknowledge that if I were coming here and I said white people built such and such, but it's unreasonable to think that brown people built such and such, I think that would be a valid argument. What I'm uncomfortable with is when people say the people did build it, but according to them, their own claim, they were guided. So it's not racist for us to say they claim they were guided.
Which is no different than when a white person says that he was guided by God to paint the Sistine Chapel, to build this great cathedral, to go conquer another land, or any of the other great, amazing historical things that Europeans do, and say that they did it because God inspired them or ordered them to do so, and we don't question it. But when it's a brown person, we're like, maybe they meant aliens. Maybe somebody helped them. Maybe it was the Anunnaki or something. And it's just, it's always the same.
They claim it themselves, though. They're saying it themselves.
Hey, Dirk, sorry, can you talk a little bit quiet? Dirk, can you either talk a little bit quieter or move your mouth back from the mic? It's just a little abrasive on the ears.
The ancient peoples are claiming themselves that they did it. And I don't think it's the same as the Sistine Chapel, because such things can be recreated. If we take white people out of it, no white people, the peoples that are living in these areas now are not claiming that they can recreate these things. So there's an element of ability that is undeniably lost.
We can recreate all of these wonders of the ancient world that you're talking about. And the ones that we don't know everything, we're learning a lot. Like how they just learned in the past few years, like really solid, good evidence understanding how the pyramids were built, moving those heavy stones across sand. And for like 100 years, everyone was like, oh my God, this is so insane and so impossible. And this couldn't have possibly happened by natural causes. Surely these people couldn't have figured out how to move these stones across sand. And then a group of Egyptologists read the damn hieroglyphic that shows them doing it and recreated the way they did it, and it worked. And there's other dudes who like did it in their backyard and shit and move these heavy stones, and it's just like, it's not like it's not that crazy. It's just like mechanics. It's just physics. If you understand simple machines, you can do it. And these people were just really good at trigonometry, and they pulled it off.
It's a scale that exceeds people doing it on their backyard or even the population at the time, Forrest. That's the problem.
It's not. It's 110% not, as is being repeatedly demonstrated by modern science.
There is nothing that has been recreated. Sorry, go ahead.
My inability to understand how people from a long time ago accomplished something does not make me inclined to believe, therefore, aliens. So you've already like, even if you could convince me that this is some incredible feat that we have no idea how they accomplished, which is not true, I'm still at an impasse where I'm like, okay, therefore what? At most, therefore, I don't know. Interesting, cool, hope to figure it out someday. But ancient aliens and then God, like, this is a lot for, this claim.
Yeah, I'm putting a link in the chat right now to a YouTube video of a guy moving massive several ton stones by himself using simple wooden machines that he has built in his yard. Here's another one. I'm going to find this other one here. This is another demonstration from a documentary showing how this person is building Stonehenge and shit.
Forrest is in the middle of talking. I'm muting him.
These things... Yeah, these are all these things that you claim haven't been recreated, haven't been done, couldn't possibly be done. And here's literally people doing it by themselves, by hand, using simple wooden machines. I put 2 different videos in the chat now showing these things happening. Like literally, modern archaeologists are able to cover this shit. It's not magic. It's not aliens. It's just science. It's people, earlier humans, understanding science, as a lot of them did.
I'm going to unmute him now. All right, Dirk, if you want to respond, you can go now.
It's not the same scale. I'm not arguing that it cannot be done, which is your claim that I'm making that I'm not making. I'm saying it is not done on the scale required. And when we talk about the South American ones, no.
But Dirk, did you hear what I said?
Is that necessary?
So, Dirk, did you hear what I said? Because I am taking this a whole nother route. You telling me that something you telling me that something crazy happened, that these people did this thing and they say that aliens taught them how, or some higher being or whatever, and therefore it must be that. That's not convincing to me. At most, what I'm able to say back to your claims that you're making is, I don't know, sounds super cool, would love to know more. That's it.
And my argument is that by you dismissing their claims, you guys are the ones being racist, because you're saying they must be lying or it's a hoax. When they say
we didn't say that.
I'm willing to dismiss magical claims as mythology the same way for them as I would for anyone else.
Yep.
And also, I have to throw this out there. Just you understand why saying it's not on the same scale is not a reasonable counter argument, right? You get that?
It is,
you get that the scale argument doesn't make any sense?
Recreated pyramid. We have not actually done it. You can say, I made a tiny pyramid in my backyard, or I broke this rock with a bronze
But
saw.
we have moved bricks the size of the bricks on the pyramid to show that it can be done. And all we're saying is, and then we did it a lot.
Theoretically, but you have not recreated that people actually did it. You have shown, absolutely, people could theoretically have done it. You have not shown that it is something that
you don't have to yell.
Dirk,
we can have this conversation without you yelling and interrupting. And I'm wondering if this is why Jimmy cut you off last time. So if we can just like tone it down a notch and just have patience and take our time and each respond one at a time, that will make this go a lot better.
It's also like, it's really important to point out the fact that like that just what you are saying right now is the same thing as what the last troll caller said, saying, well, you haven't seen a human eye evolve from scratch. You don't need to. You need to show the mechanisms, you need to show the possibility, and then you can start building a theory about it. The same thing applies here. We don't need to build an entirely new pyramid. We just need to show how these things got moved, that it is possible for humans to do it. We need to show that like these machines exist at this time. There's records of things like these machines at this time. Like we can put all the pieces together without building an entire new pyramid to prove that it's possible. You have to understand how that's not a reasonable expectation.
But you're cherry picking when you dismiss their claims that they had help. And that's what I don't understand, why you think it's okay to say, well, we can dismiss this as mythology, but we can come up with a practical solution without recreating the actual pyramid. And I understand we have...
Dirk, do you believe that we should accept all claims that people make about things? Or do you think that we should look at reality and see what makes sense logically to see if those claims are accurate or not?
Okay, I think we should look at their claims and try and figure out why they would logically come to that conclusion, even if they were mistaken about what they were seeing. I think dismissing their claim out of the entire claim as if it was all false is what is dishonest.
Dirk, I know people today that make ridiculous claims where they will say a prayer and their headache goes away and therefore it was God. Was it God or was it the Advil they also took when they said that prayer? Why am I going with the least logical, the least reasonable explanation just because this person has an attachment to an idea of a higher being?
It is not a one person making the claim. It is an entire culture that
I know millions of people in the evangelical culture that believe in faith healing, and they all make these claims that anytime somebody gets better, it's God healing them. So we can talk culture, that's fine. So people do that. You're not addressing what Forrest and I are actually saying.
In 2,000 years, if we lose our modern technology and the moon landing becomes myth, these claims you're making now are the same. Well, we don't have evidence. There's no evidence. But people will say, the entire culture will say, we landed on the moon, and you're dismissing that. And that's dishonest.
No, it's not all the same. Yeah. That's very obviously not the same. Here's the thing. You're conflating you're not conflating, you're doing the opposite. You are deliberately and dishonestly separating ancient alien claims from theistic claims and pretending like it's reasonable for us to dismiss one, but not reasonable for us to dismiss the other. The Aztecs would sacrifice a prisoner of war and cut out their heart in order to honor the sun god and to preserve the world. They did this to make sure that the sun would rise the next day and the world would be preserved. And here we are. The world is preserved and the sun continues to rise. Does that mean that we should think that that was actually what was happening and that they were actually being effective in these sacrifices? Or can we dismiss that one because it's clearly mythology and it's just a cultural belief that thousands of people believed in? And why, if so, is that different than some other guy saying, actually, it was aliens that came and helped us build this pyramid? Why don't we get to dismiss that one? And when we can dismiss the sun god thing, like what's the actual difference between these supernatural claims?
Something was demanding sacrifice for us. Something was demanding sacrifice.
People.
And that's what you're dismissing.
People were demanding sacrifice. Yes. And people built the pyramids. And people built the pyramids in Mexico too. And people
and
built
we
Stonehenge.
learned all this behavior from what? We learned the need for sacrifice from what? Why are we sacrificing to ourselves? It makes no sense, Forrest. We're sacrificing to something
it
that
absolutely
is
makes sense.
sacrifice.
Why do Catholics have Lent? What are they sacrificing to?
Well, they're giving things up. They're not killing other people.
It's a type of sacrifice. It's a toned down version of sacrifice. The Christian religion is built on the story of human sacrifice.
So Dirk,
I'm going to mute you again because you can't stop interrupting. The story of Christianity is one of human sacrifice. So they are in a cult of human sacrifice, believing in human sacrifice that works. They sacrificed Jesus and it worked. And also ritualistic cannibalism, eating the blood and the flesh of Jesus every day, just like how the Aztecs had ritualistic cannibalism. It's just toned down and turned into metaphor because we live in a day and age where that kind of shit is frowned upon now. Same thing with the Muslim religion. They have Ramadan. It is a form of sacrifice that is less extreme, but still a form of sacrifice. Lots of cultures, lots of religions, lots of traditions involve these themes of sacrifice, usually to teach a lesson about generosity and about gratitude and shit like this. But to say they must therefore have something they are sacrificing to is a genuinely silly thing to claim.
I'd really like to ask a question, Dirk, and then I'll unmute you. Everything Forrest just said. And therefore, in that case, can you give me evidence to anybody, to something else other than humans demanding sacrifice? That's what I want to know. What is your evidence that something else demanded sacrifice? And it wasn't just people and culture as we have seen throughout history.
I do not think that there is anything else on this planet that has ever demanded sacrifice in the way. Now, I mean, I guess we could say, well, like a lion wants to eat first or something, but there's nothing in this world that has demanded sacrifice in that way. Nothing.
So I'm going to ask the question again because I'm going to ask it again because maybe you didn't understand me because that wasn't an answer. What is your evidence that something other than humans were demanding sacrifice?
There is no evidence that I know of that something other than humans was demanding sacrifice.
Exactly our point. That's exactly our point. So why are we going to make up a story or believe somebody making some really outrageous claim when you compare it to reality over, oh, yeah, honestly, it makes sense. It was probably just humans. And we can observe that. And we can't observe any other being or any other thing that we could point to and say, well, no, it was actually that.
Because humans learn by observation. We had to have observed it. We did not come up with it ourselves. We didn't just go, oh, the sun requires sacrifice to be powered. There has to be
Does the sun require sacrifice to be powered, Dirk?
No, it doesn't. So where did we get that idea from? What can you say made that?
So do you think, so hold on, this is getting extra crazy. You think aliens were lying to people and saying that the sun needs sacrifices, even though it doesn't, as you just said? Like what? None of this is, you've picked the most ridiculous explanation for something that doesn't need one.
It's not
I'm not following.
It
is ridiculous, Dirk, to think that aliens showed up. Dirk, it is ridiculous. You just said yourself that the sun does not need sacrifice.
That's
so
right.
Why do you think aliens came and convinced people to do something that is harming others and isn't even for a reason? This is absolutely
power and control. How can you not understand? You'll accept power and control. You'll accept why Republicans do evil things for the sake of power and control. But apparently it's beyond you that a space alien would try and assert power and control over what they consider to be lesser.
It is beyond me. It is absolutely beyond me, Dirk. This is absolutely wild.
I am blown the fuck away that you're going to take that tone and say it's all about the aliens doing power and control. And you understand how humans do evil things for power and control. Therefore, the aliens could too. And you're missing the fact that we have examples of humans doing human sacrifice for other humans, not aliens, not gods. There are plenty of examples of kings and pharaohs and emperors who had, when they were buried, they had several slaves and servants and cattle and shit buried alive with them, sacrificed with them for their glory in the afterlife. Not for a god, not for an alien. Humans being sacrificed for other humans. And you're going to sit here and be a condescending prick to Eve and be like, you understand that some humans are evil. That's why I know aliens are evil. It's like, dude, climb all the way down out of your ass for 2 seconds and just acknowledge the fact that there are human beings that do this shit throughout history. We have 1,000 examples of sacrifice in a variety of different ways, and none of it requires alien intervention. We have lots of examples of big megastructures being built. None of it requires alien intervention. And we have a lot of theistic claims, magical claims, supernatural claims, none of which require alien intervention, and none of which require our consideration without evidence. Yes, if you would give us an example of something that you're, or some claim without any evidence, we can dismiss it without any evidence. The same way for aliens as it is with a god or anything else. Good gravy, dude. Think about what you're saying before you fucking say it.
May I retort now?
Oh, please, my good sir, by all means, yes. Now is your opportunity, for tell me why I am wrong.
Okay. Do you remember that ad? I don't know if you guys remember that ad. This mom's looking around her kid's room, and she finds a little bag of weed, and the mom goes,
I swear to God, dude.
Is that where this came from?
Yes, I learned from watching you,
Suddenly.
aliens.
You got it, Forrest.
Tell me, Dirk. Dirk,
where do people learn racism, Forrest? Where do people learn racism? Where did that come from?
Will you please explain?
That's the only
obviously aliens. The aliens were racist, is what it is.
No,
Dirk, will you please explain to me the difference? Will you please explain to me? I've got you on mute again. Good gravy, dude. You've got to quit yelling. Dirk, will you please explain to me the actual difference between humans didn't do this at one time and then they did, therefore aliens, versus humans weren't around at one time and then they were, therefore God? Or humans didn't used to believe in this. Donkeys have a cross on their back, and that's clearly proof of Jesus, because where else would it come from?
I want to know, were there like bear aliens that came in and taught bears how to behave so that they could observe what to do? Were there like, lizard alien? Oh God, that's probably as a claim. Something, like turtle aliens. Sorry, I don't want to go down the lizard path, but how did this all?
Dirk, tell us about the beaver aliens that taught the beavers how to make beaver dams, please.
Am I back?
Yes, tell us about the beaver aliens. Okay. This is your chance.
Okay, first
what
of all,
aliens taught the beavers how to make beaver dams?
If you want to know more, because I'm going to leave
I'm not going to let you cite some bullshit documentary. Tell us about the beaver aliens.
Did you ask? Do you want to hear or not?
Tell me about the beaver aliens. That's what I'm asking.
All right, it's
what
all
aliens
in the
taught the beavers?
Space wolf tranquility. It's all in the cosmic space wolf tranquility. If you want to know more,
what aliens taught the beavers, Dirk?
It's all in the book, The Cosmic Space Wolf
and I'm done.
Is there
Are you
a
done?
chapter on alien beavers? Yeah, I'm so.
I'm over it.
Okay, well, you guys are just weak then. I'll talk to you guys later.
Pull up the chat. No, I want to know. I want to know what aliens taught the beavers. What aliens taught the beavers, Dirk?
We'll do this later when you guys calm down.
Tell me right now. Okay? Tell me right now about the alien beavers. Tell me right now. Don't be weak. Tell me about the alien beavers.
Okay. Every animal, every creature has a god. Dolphin.
And there it is. And there it is.
I was right. This is so exciting. This is really cool.
Dirk's a polytheist who believes in alien beavers.
You know what?
Yeah, I know what. It's incredibly fucking lazy.
He told us to stop yelling. Sorry. He was yelling from the first moment of this whole call.
It's only when it became too funny to continue. Do
you think he's that guy? Gravy. Do you know that meme of the guy? I think he's from like the History Channel or something, where he's like, aliens.
Yeah, yes.
I think that might be that guy.
I think that the book he was referencing is his book, 100%. That is a book that he wrote that he is wanting to sell. If you look up that whatever the fucking book he said, it's Dirk somebody or other is the one who wrote that, and find me the chapter on beaver aliens and call back.
That was so exciting at the end there. Wow.
This one may be short, may be long. Who knows? We've got John, pronouns he, him, calling in from Orangutan Hymens, who is a theist who wants to know our opinion on Christopher Hitchens. John, you're on the line with Forrest and Promise. How are you doing today?
Okay, how are you guys?
Doing well,
man. We just learned about beaver aliens. How could I be
sad
wild right now?
Oh, boy. Well, I heard you at the beginning of the program that you were lauding Christopher Hitchens.
Yeah.
Do you feel
just like anybody, there's a lot of things that I love about him, some things that I don't, but overall, I think he was a net positive.
Do you feel that his atheism led to his alcoholism and depression?
No, I think that's a silly thing to try to connect.
Yeah, I know a lot of Christians that are depressed and alcoholics. So I think people are very complex, and I think most of the time when people have addiction issues like that, something has started way before they're even thinking or having, the ability to determine if they believe in a God or not.
Yeah, I also, like me, I am exactly as atheist and anti-theist as Christopher Hitchens. I share a lot of the same beliefs that he has. In fact, I learned a lot from him. He was a major influence on my career and on my anti-theism. And I don't even like drinking. I don't do any drugs. I don't smoke. I don't do any of those things.
Would you consider
I'm addicted to
yourself
books.
to be happy? Would you consider yourself to be happy?
Yeah,
exceedingly.
One of the reasons I do this, John, is because when I was a Christian my entire life up until about 25, 26, and I was experiencing massive amounts of anxiety and depression, and life was really difficult because I was not able to seek out proper life skills and tools to help me cope with some different things I was struggling with. Also, a lot of the problems that I had were directly because of the environment, the Christian culture that I was in. And, it's a whole long story, but essentially leaving that and being able to just be fully intellectually honest, to be able to get to know different types of people that I had never known before, to be able to interact with the rest of the world on an intellectually honest level, changed everything for me. And I have been able to make significantly better choices every year since I left religion than when I was in it. And therefore, my quality of life continues to get better and better and better. And I continue to be a much happier person because my circumstances are there more by my design rather than by dogma. If that
my
answers your question.
Atheism and my not just atheism, but my whole philosophy, which is largely rooted in nihilism, actually gives me a tremendous amount of joy and freedom and purpose and meaning. It allows me to create the life that I want and be very, very excited about it. I'm damn giddy all the time. I'm telling you, I wake up with a smile every single day, and I go to bed with a bigger smile every single day. I'm very, very happy and very, very atheist.
Well, you said it gives you your purpose. Can you tell us what that purpose is?
Yeah. So I sort of misspoke there. I could have been more clear, but I didn't think it was necessary. But since you're asking, I don't think that there is any meaning to anything. I am a cosmic nihilist. I believe that there is no such thing as meaning or purpose or anything like that on a grand scale. I don't think there's any purpose to my life, my existence, to any existence, to the earth, to the human population, to anything. Nothing matters whatsoever. And that allows me to create the meaning that I want to make. And I find great meaning and great joy and great purpose in helping other people's lives get better and in spreading goodwill and making everybody smile and standing up for people's rights and dignities and making sure that everybody's treated right. Like those are things that fill me with joy and fill me with what you could call purpose. I don't believe there's any actual purpose for life at all. That's the one that I like and the one that I've chosen. It's just good for me. But that is also a totally different rabbit trail that if we go down, we're going to get way away from the point why you called. So I'm happy to talk about it. But I don't recommend it.
Can I ask Thomas what her purpose is?
Yeah, again, I also don't believe that there's such thing as objective purpose at all. I think that nothing matters. Therefore, whatever matters to me is what matters in my world. And what's really cool about that is that instead of being told what my purpose should be, instead of being told what matters, I get to improve what my purpose is and what matters to me as I learn more about the world around me, as I gain empathy for the people around me. I get to develop that purpose and develop meaning in my life. And so for me, I don't have this like clearly defined, oh, this is my purpose. I think purpose for me is things like joy and shared time and community with others. So I tend to design my life in a way that gets me access to those things more easily and also allows me to hopefully create more of that in other people's lives as well.
Yeah, and if I can just say, like, it sounds awful to me to have an objective purpose. If like the idea of a God giving me a purpose, that sounds the closest thing to hell that I can imagine being real. Imagine being born with a purpose. Your life is planned out. No freedom, no actual choice, no actual will. Eventually you're gonna do the thing that God wanted you to do. You are destined. Your destiny is already predetermined, and you're just this fucking robot that thinks it's free, that is doing a job in this grand game of chess for God to win a game against itself. Like, that sounds miserable. I hate the idea of an actual purpose.
Well, that brings me back to Christopher Hitchens. If you feel that he had no purpose, maybe that's what led him to alcoholism and depression.
So we can just go back to the beginning of the call and play it again on repeat. I have a lot of the same philosophies that Christopher Hitchens has. If anything, I believe in less purpose than Christopher Hitchens did. And I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I'm very happy. And I know a lot of Christians who believe in purpose who struggle with addiction of all kinds and depression of all kinds. So, no, those are different things.
Yeah, and I think what it comes down to for me, John, is also I didn't become an atheist because I thought it had amazing things to offer me, or I thought it had purpose to offer me, or I thought it was going to fix any of my problems. I became an atheist because I stopped believing in a God. And so that made me an atheist. And I'm somebody that stopped believing in a God because I wanted to only believe things that are true. And I did not find reason to believe that was true. And so if we, it's like talking about two totally different things. So talking about whether somebody should be an atheist or theist, that should just be based off of if they believe or if they don't believe. If you want to talk about like, well, should people still pretend to believe even if they don't, because maybe they'll be prone less to alcoholism and things like that, that's an entirely different conversation. And that's going to depend on each individual person, because then we can just go back and forth and I can say, here's a pastor that was molesting kids and had a drug habit. And then you can say, here's an atheist who killed themselves. And I can say, cool, here's a theist who had massive depression their whole life. Here's a theist that was a serial killer. Here's an atheist that did this or that, like going back and forth like that. To me, that's less interesting than actually getting to the heart of like, is this something that's true or not?
Well, if you want to find out what something is true, what do you feel is the truth?
About what?
About life.
What about life?
I mean, that would be like an infinite answer.
What is the truth about your life?
About
that
my
I am
life?
alive, as far as I know.
Yes, Thomas. The truth. What is the truth about your life, Thomas?
What kind of, are you looking for some like abstract answer? Because I can tell you I'm not going to say it on here, but I can tell you my birthday. I can tell you my height. I can tell you I got brown eyes. I've got mostly kind of grayish brown hair that is dyed. I really, really, really like hanging out with my friends. All of those are true things about my life. I swallowed a quarter when I was 5 years old, or maybe I was 6, and that was exciting. I have so many things I can tell you that are true about my life. I have the X-ray actually of it sitting there. They did have to remove it. I do have the quarter too.
Horrific. Hell yeah.
So John, I don't know. Like when you say what is true about your life, I can give you so many answers.
Yeah, if you ask me what's true about my life, I would say that I am currently alive, but I won't be for long. That's the truth about my life, is that it's going to end, but it is currently happening, it seems. Yeah.
Well, I guess I was asking about your present life, not when it ended.
Well, I don't know what the question is. I don't know what you mean. It's like asking me what's the truth about the color purple. It is.
Well, I guess,
what does it do?
I guess
if
you don't have a purpose, then you wouldn't have a truth to your life.
That doesn't make any sense either. See, here's the thing, man, is that like it sounds to me like you have this like paradigm in your head where if you believe in God, you will then have purpose and you will then be happy and never do drugs and all this stuff. And you seem to need this answer from us that, yeah, we stopped believing in God and then we became nihilists and then we all drank ourselves to death. And that's just what happens, man. And it's like, that's just not realistic. I ask you, just can you grapple with one thing that we've brought up several times? Why do you think it is that there are a lot of believers in the same religion as you who struggle with addiction and depression? Why do you think that is?
I can't speak for other people. All I can do is speak for myself.
So let's talk about you, John.
So why do you think it's necessary? Why do you think then that it's necessary to find this causal link between Christopher Hitchens being an atheist and then becoming an alcoholic and depressed if you can't speak for anybody else?
Yeah,
why
you
do you
just
think that
asked
in this
us
one
to
case
speculate. Right, you're asking us to speculate on somebody else, but then you're not willing to do it.
Well, I was just wondering if you thought there was. I'm not asking you whether.
Okay, I'm asking you the same question. I'm asking you the same question, John. Why do you think, not asking you to whatever, just the same question you asked us, but pick any random Christian who has struggles with alcoholism, depression, addiction to other drugs. Why do you think that might be?
Because they don't know the truth.
Okay, so John, what is...
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Forrest. What is your life purpose, John?
What is my life purpose?
Yes.
To serve God.
What's the
what
truth?
God? And how do you know what God? I guess let's go to that first.
The God that is in the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
The God of the Bible, a Christian God?
The Christian God, yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And how do you know what that God wants you to do?
Because he incarnated on earth and he told us directly what to do.
How do you know that that's true?
Because there were several eyewitnesses that saw him.
Where are these eyewitness accounts? How many eyewitness accounts? Because if somebody calls in talking to us about Hindu gods or Allah, they also say there's eyewitness accounts and stuff, and there's people that saw this. But then when we get to it, I think you're about to say, are you going to talk about the 500 witnesses? Is that what you're saying?
Well, if you believe in the Gospels and Paul's writings.
But why do you believe that those are true?
The same reason that I would hear testimony in a court of law where several different witnesses gave the same testimony.
Yeah, so bad reasons, because that's
a terrible reason to believe something.
Yeah, it's awful. What do you say to all the other people and all the other religions that say the exact same thing you just said about the eyewitness testimony of their gods? What do you think about them?
What are they? What is their testimony?
There's so many that we've probably not heard of them. So, like, what would you say to these different ones? Why should we believe yours over theirs?
Because it was confirmed.
By what?
By eyewitness testimony.
Which are?
That is what we are talking about, John. We said that there's eyewitness testimony, and you said, yes, I believe this eyewitness testimony because it was confirmed by eyewitness testimony. That doesn't make any sense, good sir. That's not a good reason to believe a thing.
Yeah, John, if somebody called John, if somebody called the show, let's say 5 people in a row called the show and said that they were all at this place and that this pink teddy bear appeared out of the sky and said, "I am God and you should believe me." And here I'm going to leave, obviously, and here is this book that I'm going to leave you. It's going to tell you everything you need to know. And those people call us and they say, "Look, we've got the book. You need to believe us because we're giving you recent eyewitness account. This is not some like old book that's been retranslated and all of this. This is like they just saw this happen." Why should we believe your claim over theirs?
Well, we would have to depose them.
What does that mean? In the context of what you just said, what is that?
Depose them in a court of law.
Cool. And we could actually do that with them. We couldn't do that with the claims that you're making because you're saying it's people that aren't alive anymore. So again, why should I believe you over them? Because actually now I would be more inclined to believe their claim than yours.
Also, further question, have you deposed the people who made the eyewitness claims in the Bible in a court of law? Or has anybody ever done anything even close to that?
Well, they did back in the 1st century.
No, they just murdered people.
Here's
the thing,
man. Did
man.
not do that.
If you're okay with it, promise, I'd like to give a specific example of what we're talking about here. You know, but I love the pink teddy bear. That is real. That is the one true God. But also there's also this here. Satya Sai Baba is one that I like to point to from time to time when we get into these kinds of conversations. Satya Sai Baba lived in our lifetime. He died in 2011, was born in 1926. He was a guru in India. He had millions of followers. He said he was the reincarnation of some other guy that was also some great guru and all this stuff. He has millions of followers who claim that he was able to heal people miraculously, that he was clairvoyant, that he was able to produce rings and necklaces and watches and stuff from thin air, that he resurrected the dead. People claim that he was omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscient. He had all the omnis. This is a living God that millions of people believed in, millions of eyewitness testimonies in our lifetime. Why do you not worship this man? Why don't you believe that he was real? Why have you probably never even heard of him?
I have never even heard of him.
Right. Why? Why do you think that is?
Well, obviously, because it's not true.
I've heard of Allah. Does that make Allah true?
No.
Okay, so what's the difference then? Why are you able to dismiss this guy as saying that even though he has millions of followers and eyewitnesses to his so-called miracles, you know for sure he's not real? Why are you able to do that without even learning the first thing about him? But with this God, you have a 2,000-year-old book which has been retranslated, reinterpreted, changed, adapted, rewritten 1,000,001 times, and this one is for sure real. What's the difference? Why are you able to say one thing is true and the other one isn't?
Well, let's depose his eyewitnesses.
No, because you have not and will not be able to depose the Bible or the people who wrote it. So why do you believe the Bible? Because the Bible says it says, but you don't believe this dude who is literally a guy who literally lived in the real world that we can all agree and confirm he really did exist, and he has millions of people that believe in him. Why don't you believe in this guy, but you do believe in this Iron Age sex manual?
I told you, because they were able to depose him in the 1st century.
No, they weren't. You don't. Where is your evidence? Like, where is this court of law? Where is the hearing? Where are the transcripts from this? Where's your evidence that that is true at all? Because we could go depose these people and actually record it and show it to you. You could be there. You could sit in the room.
Also, religious devotees are going to give an accurate or not an accurate, but a sincere testimony that'll probably even hold up to like a polygraph and some other dumb shit that happens all the time.
Well, as they say, the proof is in the pudding, so let's depose these people.
Okay, so you're just saying the same thing over and over. Let me ask you this.
Well, I'm saying the same thing about the Bible. Like, let's depose your claims, but you're, again, not getting it. Sorry, go ahead, Forrest.
There are no, what's so important to remember is that there are no confirmed eyewitness accounts of the events of the Bible, especially the events of Jesus. Mark was written in 66 AD. Matthew and Luke were written around 85 AD. John was written around 100 AD. None of these people met Jesus. None of these people were eyewitnesses. This is the telephone game. This is somebody talking to somebody, talking to somebody, talking to somebody, and then they wrote down some folk tales. There are no eyewitness accounts that have been confirmed. There was no deposed or deposable person who is, in the Bible here. That never happened. You're probably talking about the persecution of early Christians, which is a very common Christian talking point, to say these people were tried and executed for their beliefs and therefore they're real. But that doesn't make any sense. Somebody can be deposed and lie. Somebody can be deposed and be insane and say things that aren't true. None of that actually proves anything. And also, you're not holding Satya Sai Baba or his followers to the same standard of evidence that you hold your God or its followers. So I'm asking you, why don't you believe in that for the same reason?
I would believe in Satya Baba if you were able to depose his witnesses.
He's dead. So how do we do that?
Okay.
Yeah. Just like Jesus.
So, John, why are you willing to believe in your God claim without holding it to the same standard that you would require this new God claim?
Well, I'm willing to believe in this new God if you can prove his claims.
That wasn't my question. Let me repeat this. Why are you willing to believe in a God claim that does not meet the standards that you would require of a new God claim?
I don't understand the question. Can you
so you're
repeat
willing, you're willing to believe this Christian God without requiring the same evidence of it that you're now requiring in order to change your mind. Why is there a lower standard for the Christian God to live up to than there is for this new one we presented to you?
There isn't a lower standard. I'm saying that I will believe in this Satya Baba if you can produce the witnesses.
No,
right.
Why do you believe what you believe?
Yeah, that's the thing, man. You don't have any eyewitnesses for Jesus. You don't have any eyewitnesses for the Christian God. No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
There aren't any. There's a book there you have in the Bible where it says that there were some witnesses, but that's the claim. That's just a book. The same way that I can point to, like in the Lord of the Rings, and it says people saw XYZ thing, doesn't mean it's real. You don't have any actual evidence outside of the Bible to say that this stuff actually happened or that anybody actually witnessed it.
I don't have any evidence for Plato and Socrates except for what's in a book either.
Do you believe that they're God?
Don't believe you don't base your belief about the nature of reality or what will cause alcoholism based on Plato or Socrates. Like, here's the thing, man. Like, if I show you, there's a real book called Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. It's an actual book about the historical figure Abraham Lincoln hunting vampires. I can demonstrate to you proof that Abraham Lincoln was a real guy. None of that proof is going to come from me referencing that book. I cannot prove to you that vampires are real. And if I try to point to that book and say Abraham Lincoln is real, and here we have a book about Abraham Lincoln and also vampires, therefore vampires are real, I would be justifiably tased if I was trying to explain this to a group of people. That just would be a silly thing to say. So here you are saying, you don't have any evidence that Jesus was real. You don't have any evidence that God is real. You don't have any evidence of these eyewitnesses, but you have this book that says these things. And you're going off of that and saying, aha, therefore it's all real. You have less evidence for this God than you do for the vampires that Abraham Lincoln killed.
Was there anybody living during the time of Abraham Lincoln that had anything to do with vampires?
I can't tell if you are deliberately missing the point or not. So, yeah, people believed in vampires during the age of Abraham Lincoln. Does that mean vampires are real?
So do you feel that Abraham Lincoln had something to do with vampires?
I'm asking you a question. I have a book called Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. It's about Abraham Lincoln hunting vampires. And you and I can both agree that Abraham Lincoln was real and that people around the time of Abraham Lincoln believed in vampires. Does that mean that vampires are real and that Abraham Lincoln hunted them?
This book that you're talking about is not contemporary with Abraham Lincoln.
Why do you think that? Why don't you believe in vampires, John? Because I have a book that says they're real.
I'm saying that the book you're talking about is not contemporary with Abraham Lincoln.
Of course not. Just like all modern history books aren't contemporary with Abraham Lincoln, but they have references and cite real things that Abraham Lincoln did do. And the book Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, it absolutely does reference a lot of things that are very real about Abraham Lincoln's life. It also talks about vampires. Does that mean vampires are real, John?
We're talking about contemporary witnesses to Abraham Lincoln, and this book is not a contemporary eyewitness.
There are contemporary witnesses to Abraham Lincoln, John. We know Abraham Lincoln was real, and there are contemporary witnesses, and there are contemporary people around the time of Abraham Lincoln who do write about vampires. That's a thing. So, do you believe in vampires?
This book is not contemporary with Abraham Lincoln, the way that the Gospels are with Jesus Christ.
Okay, since we're doing that, I'm just going to go back and repeat myself.
And also, that's just not even true. It was written after Jesus had been dead. So
that's what I'm saying. I already said this. But I guess, John, you weren't listening. Mark was written around 66 AD. Matthew was written around 85 AD. John was written around 100 AD. None of these people were eyewitnesses to Jesus.
You're making these claims. Now, what's your evidence?
That's our point to you, John.
We care about evidence now.
That's our very point to you.
What is your evidence that Matthew was written at 80 or 90?
What's your evidence that it was written at any other time?
Because we have the writing in person. We're looking at it.
Your Bible was written at that time? You should probably check it into a museum because that's groundbreaking. Or do you have a book that is probably produced in the last, I would say, 20 to something years?
We don't have the original books that were written about Plato.
No, we don't.
What does that matter?
And I don't base my life around Plato's or Socrates. I don't give a shit what they said or thought. It's not interesting to me anyways. So we're not talking about them. You are the one saying that you believe an entire God currently exists based off of these things from the past. And we're asking for evidence to connect that claim. I've made no claims about Plato or Socrates because I don't care.
Also, I didn't find any first accounts. I didn't find any primary sources because I'm not a theologian or a Bible scholar. I don't have access to those. I'm not going to go digging for them right now. But I did just find from thebibleproject.com here a whole page about the book of Matthew. The book was likely composed between 50 and 90 CE. So this is even like a Christian organization that's reiterating what I'm talking about. Dude, this is not it's not news to anybody that this is not actually contemporary eyewitness evidence. All you're saying over and over.
For example, also, John, we don't. So, John, we do not have documents that Matthew sat and wrote. We don't have that at all. Everything that we have is a copy of a copy, probably even of a copy, and most of that is fragments as well. We do not have any original text at all.
There are zero original writings from the Bible. Absolutely none. There are no original documents from the Bible. They are all copies of copies of copies. That's not unique to Matthew.
If Matthew wrote in 50, it was obvious that he would have been an eyewitness in his lifetime of seeing Jesus.
So, John, I think, unless Forrest wants to keep going back and forth, I think that you are having a wall where you're unable to get the points that we're making. That I think if we were talking about any other topic, you would probably able to probably be able to follow our train of thought. I would advise you to go listen to this call because I think you're just hitting a wall over and over again. I don't think you're doing it deliberately, because I used to do this as well when I really needed to continue believing something. But we're reaching a point where we're saying the same thing over and over and over again, and you're able to grasp the point when we talk about some other subject, but as soon as we talk about your God claim, you completely throw out your ability to grasp the logic that we've all agreed on. So I would advise that you go back and listen to that. I appreciate that you've been respectful and that you've engaged honestly, and you've had a nice back and forth with us and all of that. So you're welcome to call back anytime. You could even call back the show tonight if you want. You can call my show Chewed Gum, but this is at the point where it's just going absolutely nowhere. And based on the fact that you were just interrupting me while I was in the middle of talking also makes me think that you're not really listening. So now I'm feeling a little less into the callback. But what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say the Sunday show after dark is already scheduled, and it is Jimmy and Matt. Yeah. Matt actually studied to be a preacher and can tell you all about how we have 0 eyewitness accounts, 0 original writings in the Bible, and can actually provide those sources for you. But again, it's not going to get you anywhere if you can't just admit the fact that you have a different standard of evidence for your God than you do for any other claims about literally anything ever.
I just want to know if Thomas is happy in contrast to Christopher Hitchens.
Jesus, a fucking Christ man, dude.
John, I don't know Christopher Hitchens. I don't know what his levels of happiness were. That's a very subjective thing. I already answered your question at the beginning of the call, which is that I do feel a general happiness in my life. I don't know Christopher Hitchens. Obviously, I don't know him currently, and I never did. In fact, he had already passed before I even became an atheist or ever even heard of him. So I'm not, this is just like a weird way of you explaining to us that you didn't listen to anything we just said and that you were only here with agenda and not to actually have an honest conversation.
It sucks, John. It really sucks. Yes, we are both very happy. We're very happy.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm not happy right now. I'm kind of frustrated with the fact that you're just being dishonest and trying to lead us down this script that you just need us to answer. But like in life, I am quite happy.
I don't need a script.
Oh, by the way, also, I just want to throw this out there. The place where I currently like do research and study and shit, we have a whole department where people are studying addiction. Like it's a major focus of like the scientists that I work with. A lot of people studying addiction. And I'll give you just a big thing here. Atheism isn't one of the things that we test for. I shouldn't say we because I don't work in those labs, but like they talk about risk factors in life. They talk about genetic factors. They talk about epigenetic factors. They talk about trauma. They talk about all sorts of things. Nobody's checking for atheism because there's no like serious pull there of like, I forgot about God and now I drink too much. That's a silly thing to call about.
But also, John, I just want to point out, John, I'm going to point out this last thing before we let you go. If my answer to you is that I am deeply, deeply unhappy and I am struggling with addiction and my life circumstances suck and everything is awful, and when I was a Christian, everything was great, that does not make your claim true, and it doesn't make my lack of belief any less valid. So I trying to engage in this, what I don't know what to call it. I don't know that it's quite ad hominem, but it's trying to engage on this emotional level is not showing to me that you care about what's actually true. And that's where you lost me already at the beginning of the call.
Just so you're happy, not like Christopher Hitchens.
What's genuine question? What's your problem with Hitchens? Because nobody here is Hitchens. Nobody here worships Hitchens. We like some of the things that he said. We don't like some of the things that he said. I disagree with Christopher Hitchens on a few things. He's not a god. He's just a guy who was right about some stuff. And he had some issues. Who cares? What is the point of you dogging on Christopher Hitchens? Like, do you expect us to like defend him or like stick up for him?
I also know plenty of atheists that hate Christopher Hitchens. So this is just like a really bizarre call. You're not being honest. It's very frustrating.
So, like, really, what is the obsession with Christopher Hitchens with you?
Well, I have read some of his writings.
Okay, and that's not what I asked. Why do you keep bringing him up?
I know that he was an alcoholic and a very depressed person.
Why do you keep bringing him up is the question. What's the point of us talking about Christopher Hitchens?
I just wanted to get your thinking on it. You're the one that brought it up at the beginning.
I mentioned him to a caller that would probably like his writing.
Okay.
We also have mentioned several other people during this show. So
yeah, I like some of Thomas Jefferson's writing. I think Thomas Jefferson was a shit person. What's the point?
That was it. That's pretty much all.
So you heard a name and you decided to call because you thought that you could tear down this one random guy for no reason. And you can't comprehend that somebody can be happy without your God. Now that he's dead. Or at least I sincerely hope that he's dead because they buried him quite a long time ago. But like the point is, like it doesn't make any sense that this is the thing you're so hung up on.
Well, you brought him up.
Yeah, fuck me. I guess I did. Yeah, it's
conversation.
It's my fault for mentioning a guy. Next time, I'll be sure to bring up all of the pedophile priests so that maybe we can talk about them and wonder why their God leads them to rape so many children. Have a good rest of your day, John. Good gravy, dude.
That was
lazy.
Really frustrating.
You brought him up.
Okay. Also, like, what? None of that. I mean, like I said, what if we were just like fucking miserable people? What does that have to do with anything?
Yes. I literally cannot stop doing heroin. I'm doing it right now. Why does that prove that your God is real?
Wild.
What is that? We've got a couple more theists on the line. We got about an hour left in the show. So let's get into it. Let's talk to Adam, pronouns he, him, calling in from Kangaroo Yo-Yos. Are the kangaroos yo-yoing? Do the yo-yos have kangaroos on them? Are the yo-yos shaped like kangaroos? The world may never know. Adam's calling to ask what kind of evidence we're looking for. Adam, you're on the line with Forrest and Promise. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys?
Oh, awesome, man.
Good.
Living the dream right now.
Cool.
And I don't mean that in the dumb millennial ironic way. I mean, this is actually freaking great.
You know, I always feel bad that I am grouped in with millennials. I mean, I'm more of the first age era of millennials, but a lot of us, the first ones, get a bad rap.
I'm a proud cringe millennial. I love it. Like all the millennial things.
Deeply cringe. Yeah. I'm all about it. I live to make young people just like suck their own faces into their heads just by how embarrassed they are of me. John, Adam, you're sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just gonna see what Adam wanted to talk about.
Yeah, you say you're wanting to know what evidence we're looking for. Do you have a particular way you'd like to phrase that question?
Actually, I was just I just logged on or just watched some of your videos. Probably started yesterday. I've only seen like 2, so you have to forgive me if I'm not familiar with
good.
your entire library.
Yeah. How dare you not watch the hundreds of hours of our dumbasses talking about Jesus? Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. We're here to take questions.
What I'm particularly curious about is I'm a theist. I'm actually an ordained minister, but I've been in ministries for about 26 years. But I've always I've been all across the world. I think 17 different countries. When I served in the military, I met people from different religions, different backgrounds. I was really interested in science. Whenever I went to college, my goal was to become a theoretical physicist. So that pursued me into the universe, and then I got down to where we all came from. So I typically ask, you know, what people believe on our origins. And I haven't heard out of the videos that I've watched of you guys what y'all specifically believe.
As far as the origins of the universe entirely, or of life, or like what?
As far as where we came from, are you guys more of a macro evolution? Are you guys more of a Big Bang because of cosmic background radiation that we've found? Are you guys do you guys believe we came from intelligent sources, non-intelligent sources?
Yeah. Promise, do you want to go first? Do you want me to?
I really want you to go first because you're actually an expert.
I am no such thing. No, so I'm a biologist, and I dig into this kind of stuff, and I actually study evolution, specifically human evolution, quite a bit. I specialize in evolutionary biology and bioanthropology for a lot of my research days. And so the Big Bang and evolution, all these things, these are different claims. Excuse me 1 second. Had a grump in my throat, pardon me. But these are all different things, different events at different times that cause different stuff. So yes, the Big Bang is the beginning of the observable universe as we know it, the beginning of space and time as we know it. 13.8 billion years ago, we have a tremendous amount of evidence pointing that direction. You mentioned cosmic microwave background radiation. That's one good one, but it's not certainly the only one. Skip forward a long time, about 9 billion years, and you get to the beginning of the Earth. We know how planets form. So I should say we know how stars work. We know about stellar nucleosynthesis and how stars create new elements. We know how stars explode and scatter those elements all across the cosmos. We know how planets form. You have a stellar nebula, forming this star, and then you have the accretion disk of all this stuff floating around. We know that rocky stuff coagulates pretty quickly. These chunks of meteors and stuff form into big asteroids, which form into planetesimals, which form into planets. We know that solar winds blow a lot of the gases out towards the outer edge of the solar system. That's why we have terrestrial rocky planets in the center, and we have Jovian gassy planets out there at the end, where all the solar winds have blown all those light gases way that far out there. And around these terrestrial planets, we have relatively small atmospheres. As far as how life gets started on this planet, that's abiogenesis. We have a tremendous amount of evidence showing that. We know that the stuff that makes life self-assembles all the time, all by itself, not only on the planet Earth, but also out in space, where nobody can accuse some biased scientist of tweaking the knobs and contaminating the jars. We know that those things polymerize by themselves. We know a lot of how they do that as well. And we know that life started at the absolute latest by about 3.8 billion years ago, 3.8 billion years ago here on this planet, maybe a little earlier, but absolutely by the latest, by 3.8 billion years ago. And we know that evolution works, and we know how it works. We know a lot about evolution and how it changes those simple organisms into more complex organisms over time. Especially human evolution. We have a ton amount, it's a ridiculous amount of data on. In fact, it is actually, there's a lot of argument and debate within the bioanthropological community over where to classify these different fossils and different species of humans, because we just have too many damn fossils, Adam. So yeah, as far as where we come from, going back to the beginning of the universe all the way up to now, we have pretty solid naturalistic understanding of these things. Natural processes taking us this whole way. We have pretty solid models for all those things. We certainly do not know everything. There is a lot of shit that we don't know. But we know a lot more today than we did last year. We know a lot more than we did 10 years ago. We know a lot more than we did 50 years ago. We're learning more cool stuff every day, and we've yet to find a single reason to think that there was any supernatural influence on absolutely any of it.
I gotcha. So I know I forget the guy's name. One of the guys who discovered cosmic background radiation. I think his name started with an A. Alan, you may know his name right off the bat. I'm not a scientist, but he wrote a paper.
I'm not a physicist. I don't remember that guy either.
Yeah, afterwards he discovered, cosmic background radiation, and he said that the universe came from supernatural origins. So how can an evidence that is based solely on, people use for the Big Bang, which is one of the leading pieces of evidence that we have for the Big Bang, whenever the man who discovered it says it's supernatural? How do we draw these other conclusions off of it?
So here's the thing. I'm just gonna double check here. Are you talking about Arno Allen?
That's it.
Penzias? Yeah. All right, cool. So let's grab him for a second, and let's just pop him. Oh my fucking God, Mouse, I need you to behave. And we're gonna start about supernatural origin of universe, and I'm just going to double check in the absence. So astronomy leads us, here's this guy, blah blah blah, and we're going to say supernatural. Astronomy leads us to a unique event. The universe was created out of nothing and delicately balanced to provide exactly the conditions to support life. In the absence of absurdly improbable accident, The observations of modern science seem to suggest an underlying, one might say, supernatural plan. And he is quoted in this, whatever, the Just So universe as saying this. So this is a person who is a theist and a scientist and who discovered a really cool thing about the Big Bang. So he's not saying the Big Bang didn't happen. And he's not saying that there isn't a natural origin to life or anything like that. He's saying that this universe seemingly came out of nowhere and seems balanced to provide the conditions to support life. And that is a very common theistic claim. Very common. I used to work for a guy who was a PhD in particle physics, who was also a Catholic. And he talked to me about how, like, the physics, the beautiful laws of physics that he observed and studied were so perfect that they are worthy of the God that he believed in. This is not uncommon at all. I think it's important to point out, however, that that's one dude. And that by and large, the largest, like, scientists tend to be atheists a lot of the time. The highest preponderance of atheists in science, the highest percentage, I don't know why I'm using preponderance in this way, but the highest percentage of atheists in the scientific community tend to be in things like physics and evolutionary biology, because we don't need these questions anymore. So yeah, there's lots of scientists that are religious. There's lots of scientists that have different religions that go against what this guy's religion is. That's not a reason, just because this guy can't come up with a good reason to say the universe came out of nothing, which is a weird thing to say, because I don't know of any other theoretical physicist who would use that kind of language too often. That's not really a reason to believe in any kind of a supernatural thing, because I don't think that's the actual claim he's making.
Well, I mean, the supernatural origin, I mean, it's kind of, I know you guys are asking for majority evidence of things, and, something coming from nothing has never actually been observed. So,
do you want to know where I think the universe came from?
Where's that?
I have no idea. I just have no idea. I don't think it came from nothing. I just don't know. I have no idea. And that's why I don't believe in a God.
And so, and that's the thing, man, is that, like, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you guys off. I apologize.
No, there's a delay. It's just nobody's fault. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I break things down. Whenever I never finished my degree. Whenever I got out of the military, I suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, and I had to end my college degree. But whenever I was studying, I grouped things into falsifiable theories and unfalsifiable theories. To me, actual science was provable, testable, and repeatable. And then we have the unfalsifiable theories. And then creation falls into that unfalsifiable theory. So does macroevolution. Because let's say, as a hypothetical, let's say for the next 10,000 years, we find a hot spring and we begin recording all of the activity at this hot spring starting today, uninterrupted by mankind. And for the next 10,000 years, a cell has formed into a slug. Now, I'm not saying the timelines are exactly correct, but have we proved evolution? And the answer is, we proved that evolution occurred, but we didn't prove that our origins are from the same process. So in order to prove that, you would basically need to contact Doctor Who and get your hands on a TARDIS. But it's something that it's an unfalsifiable theory. So I know you say that we know
there's a couple
things,
issues,
but yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you were at the end of your sentence. If you want to finish that sentence, I'm fine with it.
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay, so a couple of things. Number one, I think that what Promise just said is really important. As I said when I was talking about all these things we do know, I also made sure to point out there's a ton that we don't know. But I don't know doesn't equal God. And so, like, even if I were to take it back to, to throw away the Big Bang, throw away evolution, throw away everything, we don't know anything about the universe, there's still not a good reason to insert magic as the explanation. You would need evidence to make a decision. And the second thing, you said that macroevolution is unfalsifiable. That's fundamentally untrue. there's plenty of ways we can falsify evolution. Like, for example, if we were to find one single human fossil down next to a T-Rex fossil and it's dated the same date, we're done. Evolution's over. It's done with. There have been plenty of times over the course of our study of evolution that we have thought we found the end of it, where we found a problem. For example, human chromosome number 2. We chimps and bonobos are our closest relatives. They're our closest cousins, and yet they have an extra pair of chromosomes that we don't have. Losing a chromosome in the short amount of time from when we split from the lineage that of chimpanzees would be a lethal deletion that would not be possible. And so the only explanation that's possible, either 2 chromosomes fuse together or evolution's done. That is falsified. That evolution is not real if we cannot find where this fucking chromosome went. And sure enough, we look at human chromosome number 2, and it's 2 chromosomes fused together. It's a Robertsonian translocation. It's something that we actually understand the mechanisms of, and we now know where that chromosome went. And so, there's plenty of ways that you could prove evolution wrong. And despite several chances of evolution being proven wrong, evolution always comes up as being right. And we talk about, we can prove evolution happens. That doesn't necessarily prove that we evolved. True. But we also have separate evidence of humans evolving. When we look at the fossil record of just our ancestors, you can pretty easily build a straight line. Even though evolution doesn't really deal in straight lines, that's not the point. We're talking colloquially here. But we actually do have separate evidence of just that. And even now, we can look at just humans today and see several markers of our evolutionary history, several vestigial structures, several indicators of our history written all over our bodies. So, it's not just we can watch some bacteria evolve in a lab, therefore I know humans evolved too. That's not good evidence at all for human evolution. The evidence for human evolution is the evidence that I'm trying to propose for human evolution.
Well, I have a question. What about the existence of out-of-order fossils? We found out-of-order fossils nearly all over the planet, and these usually, when they arise, science is faced with a conundrum to how to explain this species belonging with this species whenever they're out of date fully. So usually it comes down to, it was an earthquake, or it was a volcano that occurred. So they provide what they consider a rational answer, and then it's considered answered, and then they move on. And then, but it's the type of thing to where, once again, I can't exactly prove that. I can't go and just be like, well, I don't know that an earthquake occurred right then and there, 50 million years ago. And
so that's the thing. It's not just something they say and then move on. They pose that as a hypothesis, and then they go and do some tests. So when we look at the strata, when we look at the geologic column, right? You have different fossils in different layers. There are plenty of different events that can cause those layers to become bent, to become tilted, to be completely inverted. There's plenty of ways those things can happen. And you have an out-of-order fossil record in this one particular area. And you can then go back and double check. You can radiometrically date the rocks themselves. You can look for other markers around the landscape to understand the geological history. I'm not a geologist, but I work with one that blows my mind every time we go out fossil hunting, and he can literally look out at the landscape and read the rocks the way he's reading a book and say, oh, look, there used to be a lake here. You can tell because of this, this, and this. And it looks like the same goddamn grass to me, but this dude who's really good at this is able to say, oh, no, actually, so there's this deformation pattern, and there's this pitch at this angle and this shift, and this is what happens when there's an earthquake. It looks like that. And so, for the same reason that I look at a skeleton and say, this bone is this shape and it has this angle to it, that's what happens when there's a muscle attachment that does this thing. I can read bones, he can read rocks, and together we can look at a fossil in a particular area and say, okay, this is this kind of thing, and this is when it lived. We do radiometric testing on the rocks surrounding it. We can sometimes, depending on the age of the fossil, do radiometric dating on the fossil itself, and we can tell a little bit more, and that's just one type of dating method, by the way. Radiometric dating is an absolute dating method. There are several absolute dating methods. There are several relative dating methods, and they confirm each other. We can double check using different ones. It's not like, we know this rock is 65 million years old because it has a 65 million year old fossil in it. And we know the fossil is 65 million years old because it's in a 65 million year old rock. It isn't that way. Like, we can actually cross-reference several different dating methods to make sure that what we're saying makes sense. So yeah, geologic activity happens and it can make shit confusing sometimes. But that's not a reason to doubt the geological column, because we have naturalistic ways of understanding how those things happen and what kind of patterns they're going to produce. And we can go back and double check. Again, that would falsify evolution if we didn't have that, but we do.
Okay, like whenever you say radiometric dating, and I know there's several different types of dating, from amino acid dating to, like you said, radiometric dating to, the most accurate that we use is actually star maps. If a civilization kept good star maps, then we can date them more accurately. But most civilizations didn't keep good star maps or lineages and time frames.
Sure.
But
plenty of dinosaurs didn't either. Yeah, so it kind of sucks. We have to work on go with the isotopes we have available to us.
Exactly, and then let's say that we had the whenever it comes to geological dating, radioactive material in rocks and the surfaces of rocks, that we found out that a strong rainfall kind of screws up the dating. So rain can actually affect the fissures and the cracks in the rocks and how we date them. So these things are constantly being discovered.
So
new ways, like we just discovered with Neanderthals. I think it may have been Princeton that came out this year, saying that Neanderthals weren't the dates on our ancestors' Neanderthals are not exactly correct. So what I don't understand is, how can we close the book on any of this stuff whenever and say that we know something? And
we can't.
It's like at the beginning is like when you're saying, we
that's
know
why Forrest
planets are formed.
Right, but that's why Forrest is a scientist, to keep learning more and more and more.
Yeah.
That's why scientists didn't just stop at a certain point.
Yeah, that's the big thing that's really important. So you talk about like so like there's some dating methods can be fucked up in some ways. That's why I made sure to point out that we don't just ever use one. We cross-reference several different ones and come to the same conclusion. There are relative dating methods and absolute dating methods. We're never just going to rely on relative dating methods unless we absolutely have to, because those are relative. They're faulty sometimes depending on the conditions around them. But as far as when can we close the book on this and say, okay, now we know everything about this, we can't, and we never can, and we never could. And that's never what science claimed to be able to do. Science is just learning new stuff. And the cool thing about science is that every single time you learn something, every time you answer a question, you find 3 more questions right underneath it. That's how it always has been and how it always will be. And so when it comes to things like evolution, we are figuring out when things evolved, how things evolved, by what mechanisms things evolved, why they evolved, what selection pressures aided their evolution, not whether or not they evolved. We have put to bed that things have evolved. We have answered that question thoroughly. Now we have the next questions. Okay, well, what does that mean? How does that work? We know how this part of development works, but what causes it? And that's the next question down. It's questions all the way down. And that's what science is all about. So like, to try to poke a hole and say, look, here's this one tiny thing about whatever random dating method that we aren't 100% sure on, and that we learned something new about, that doesn't give you reason to say, well, therefore, we probably don't actually know anything, and there must be some sort of magic, which we don't have any evidence for, but it might be there, so I can't say it isn't. And like that's not a reasonable scientific framework to live under.
Yeah, Adam, you said something interesting, because you said you said like what would why would we close the book on, or what would get us to that point? But can I ask you, do you believe, it says you're a theist, so I'm assuming you believe in a God. Do you believe that this God is the origin of life, I would guess, like a creator of some sort?
I personally do, but I go by
So
faith, and a faith
right,
is
I understand, but
different than a science.
I understand that, but that's what my point is isn't that closing a book pretty hard? That to me seems to be incredibly definitive and doesn't leave room for things to stay open and for you to learn more and figure it out. Or are you on the position that like you're just letting this be the placeholder until something else better comes along?
Well, no, I have subjective evidence, but it's pointless for us to argue subjective evidence because anything I bring up, you can just deny and say, well, that may have never happened. So
And
my
why are you
evidence is
okay?
undeniable.
Yeah, why are you okay with subjective evidence for what you believe, but not for evolution?
Well, I don't believe that you can have subjective evidence for evolution, that we are origins for evolution, because we cannot go back there and subjectively view it. So I believe that my subjective evidence now, today, is more concrete than a theory that people say has closed the book on. But then we have biologists who are not poking holes, really, but the more we
So Adam,
discover
I'll
about
give you.
DNA, the more complex it becomes.
So Adam, I once was in the position where I didn't know if evolution was true or not. I was like recovering from the way I was raised, and I still didn't believe in any God because I didn't see a good reason to believe that a God existed. So I think we're conflating scientific theories with atheism, and there is oftentimes overlap happening there. But that still isn't like, to me, I can be a person that says, I don't know, evolution sounds really sketchy to me and I don't believe in it because I can just be uneducated about it. And I still don't believe in a God. So I'm just, I'm not understanding, like,
No,
this is like a big
conflating.
leap to
Don't get
take.
me wrong.
It also,
right.
That's the reason why I asked from the beginning what you do believe. Is I wasn't
Well, it
conflating
also-
your atheism with the belief
That has
in
nothing to do.
macroevolution.
If evolution were to be suddenly just like completely crippled and disproven, I still don't believe in a God. So that is like,
Well, that's fine.
it's like, yeah. So that's why it's just like not that. I don't understand how these have anything to do with each other.
That's the thing that's so important,
the
is that
reason
even
I'm
if we get rid of
asking-
evolution, you have to then demonstrate creationism. You have to have evidence that there is a God, that this God can create things, that this God did create things. Then you need to start answering questions about how and why, the way that we answer questions about how and why with evolution. And you don't have any of that. You have zero evidence for this God, zero evidence for creation, zero evidence for any of this. You only have questions that science has not satisfactorily answered for you. And you're using those questions as evidence for some other magic, and that doesn't make any sense. It also sounds like there might be a disconnect on what the word theory means.
I'm not saying that you made the claim that we know certain things. Okay,
we do.
I've made the claim that I know God based on subjective evidence, that I'm not going to argue because it's pointless.
Nothing that I said we know is subjective.
Of the scientific community.
Yes, nothing that I've said is based on subjective evidence. So me saying we know that, the basic building blocks of life can self-assemble, that is knowing based on testable, repeatable, falsifiable, all the things that you care about as a scientific method. That's what I'm saying when I say we know. It is not the same as you saying your God is real at all.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting here saying I don't know, and my response hasn't been addressed yet. I'm still not convinced. Like, nothing you've said back and forth with Forrest has convinced me to believe that a God exists at all.
Well, that's a personal choice you have to make. I mean, if
it's
you
not a
choose
choice.
to
I
believe
can't
in
choose.
God,
I can't choose to believe, Adam. I didn't choose to stop believing in a God. So, did you choose to stop believing any of the things you no longer believe? No, because it's something that happens to you based off of whatever information you take in and then how you relate to that information. So I can't choose to believe in a God. I need to be convinced. So how would you convince somebody who's just like, yeah, I don't know, but I don't see any reason to believe? What are your good reasons? Because it sounds to me like you're just trying to poke at evolution. So, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was curious as to his comments, Forrest's comments on what we know. And to me, it's something that's constantly unfolding. So there's like you said,
Sure,
for everything we answer, there's 3 more questions below it. But
and I'm saying that's not
exactly
relevant to my lack of belief. None of that, nothing that you guys have just discussed in the last 27 minutes is relevant to my lack of belief in a God. So I'm just asking, like, why should I be convinced to believe in a God?
Well, by your own admittance, you're living your life as, you know, as you see fit. You find your own purpose. There's no reason for me to convince you that there is a God. There's no reason for you to call and talk to theists at all, really.
Well, I don't call theists, they call me. But the Bible tells you that you actually are supposed to do that.
Well, no, the Bible says that I am to spread the gospel. So that's what I do.
Right.
And whether or not you believe is up to you. I mean, I can present.
So Adam, do you believe in a hell? Do you believe that hell exists?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that I'm going to go there if I don't convert to Christianity?
According to the religious foundation that I believe in, yes. If you do
Okay,
not
so
accept Jesus,
if I believe that, yeah. So Adam, if I believed that, I would, and this is actually what ended up making me become an atheist, is because I was doing my homework and trying to actually get good reasons, because I was so worried about the people in the world that I loved and cared about, and even people I didn't know, that I was desperate to be able to convince them. I didn't want to just say, well, here's the gospel, and if you don't believe, well, I guess you're going to burn forever. I actually valued people around me, and I wanted to give them good reason because I wanted them to be okay. Then when I found out I didn't have good reason, I didn't have convincing evidence for other people, it was like, why am I believing this? So then I had to examine all of that. So it's kind of offensive to hear that you would call and you would be able to just be fine with Forrest and I going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not on me. I mean, it's the type of thing to where you've already heard.
Oh, it's not, that's fine. It's not on you. So if we burn and go to hell, you had the opportunity here to convince us that a God exists and you didn't do it.
Yep.
No. See, you talk
didn't
to
God say
Christians
something
all
about
the
how, like,
time
if you're
who give
lukewarm,
you
he'll
the
spew you from
same-
his mouth and stuff?
Well, I'm not lukewarm.
This sounds real lukewarm because, Adam, I went to ministry school so that I could figure all this out, so that I could go talk to people and convince them and save them from an eternity in hell. Why are you not door to door every day trying to convince people?
I don't know what ministry school you went to, but Jesus saves, you don't. So it's the type of thing, once you hear the gospel,
semantics,
then you're
Adam,
semantics are fun.
Adam, what is your evidence for us that a God exists so that we don't end up burning in hell for forever? Or are you willing to just get off this phone call and say, well, it is what it is. I didn't try very hard at all, but you didn't even give us the gospel, by the way. But, you're willing to just be like, oh, well, it's a wash. I tried to talk about evolution and we got nowhere. So now they're going to hell.
I don't care.
I don't care about every other.
Already taught?
No, I want you to tell me why I should believe that a God exists. If you really truly believe that I'm going to burn forever, is there any human part of you that feels for that and wants to provide convincing evidence so that I don't have to go through that?
Well, that's just the thing, is that you have been taught a gospel and a religion that you spread to other people to save them that's fully faith-based, to not walk by sight, to walk by faith, and then you've rejected it. And the thing about it is that I'm just going to provide
give me
you
a
with
reason
something
to
that's
accept
fully
it.
faith-based.
Adam, give me a reason to accept it. Otherwise, you're just admitting that you don't have a good reason for us to convert. You don't have a good reason for us to believe a hell even exists. You don't have good reason for us to believe that your God is anything resembling reality.
Well, how about this? Here's the biggest thing, okay? Here's the only thing I can really tell you, is that if I'm right, in the end, when we die...
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Then
God damn it.
It's Pascal's
you
wager.
Are the ones who go and lose. But if you're right,
no,
then
Adam,
we're both
Adam, Adam, let me present you another situation. Adam, let me present you another situation. Let me present you another situation. What if you and me are both wrong. And there was another God that neither of us was able to learn about because a bunch of other people followed that God like you who didn't have good reason to convince other people that it exists. And we end up going to this other God's hell, you and me both, because we picked the wrong God and we pissed him off because I was an atheist. Actually, I pissed him off a little less because at least I wasn't worshiping something else. And you were worshiping this other God. And now we're both going to hell. There's an infinity amount of other options that end up like that. It is not just these two choices of either Christianity or nothing. Those are the only options. So that's called Pascal's wager, and that's a good one for you to go learn about.
Also, it's important to point out that even if you're using Pascal's wager, as a Christian, there are 40,000 denominations of Christianity. That's not an exaggeration. There are over 40,000 different flavors of Christianity, many of which are incompatible with the rest of them, many of which believe all the other Christians are doing Christianity wrong and are going to hell. There's a huge bunch of Christians that say that faith alone gets you to heaven. There's a whole bunch of people who say that faith is lame without works and you must do the works of Christianity. There's a bunch of people who say once saved, always saved. There's a bunch of people who say you can be saved and then you can reject God and you go to hell anyway. Like, you are wrong based on 39,999 other kinds of Christianity that think that you're going to hell because you didn't convert to them. You don't even have to look at the infinite other religions. Your own religion has so many possibilities that you should expect damnation by probability alone.
Well, there's your proof right there that my religion is true.
That's the dumbest thing I have heard today, and we had 3 troll calls. Your religion has 40,000 incompatible versions of itself. That means it's true, is insane.
Well, think about it. Okay? Think about it for a second. If God's real and Satan's real, and God says that I'm not going to remove my word from the earth, okay? It's going to stay there. He's going to protect that part. So Satan looks at it as like, I can't really get rid of God's word. So what do? I muddy the waters. I create thousands of different denominations. I create different Bibles.
So in that case, Adam,
I confuse people so much that...
How do you know that the waters didn't get so muddy that you've been convinced to believe that God is the good guy when it's actually Satan? How do you know the waters didn't get muddied so much that you're not believing something completely false? How do you know that there's anything true left in it?
Well, that's like, we might as well watch like Ocean's 13 and see who double-crossed who, and to the point to where
Adam, can you answer the question?
Double-crossed everybody.
Can you answer the question? How do you know that anything true is left if you think that the waters were muddied so hard that there's 40,000 plus denominations that cannot agree on so many things about the Bible?
Like I said, I have my subjective evidence.
Right. So
Let me ask you a question, Adam. Sorry, you go ahead. You go ahead. I have 2 different questions when we're done.
Yeah, this will be my last thing, and then you can take over. You have, so far, from my perspective, you called in, you talked about evolution for a long time. I sat here like, okay, cool. And then I asked you if you believe in a hell. You do. You think that Forrest and I, as of now, are going to hell. And you're just okay with this, and you're okay with believing something that you don't have good enough reason to convince other people to believe. But it's so serious that Forrest and I are going to burn for eternity. It's a very disappointing call that you don't have any convincing evidence for this thing that you're willing to believe based off of, as you said, faith, or as I say, nothing.
So let me get this straight. You're upset, even though I didn't say that I wasn't upset that you guys would burn in hell forever. I just said it's out of my hands, which it is. And you're upset that you don't follow a faith-based belief by faith, that you want sight, even though the faith says don't walk by sight. And then
you're misunderstanding.
I'm be upset about
I'm
that?
disappointed. No. I'm disappointed for you that you're willing to believe and base your life around something so serious that you think we're going to burn for it, and yet so unconvincing that you can't provide evidence for us, and yet you're willing to believe that. I'm disappointed for you. That's why I said this call is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. I have 2 other questions for you, Adam, really quickly before we move on. Just based on, I had a bunch of other questions about science, but it's clear that you don't care about them. So, like, when we talk about this God and Satan thing that you just brought up, that Satan muddied the waters so much to create all these different denominations of Christianity, God is very serious in the Bible. God cares a lot about people believing in him the way that he wants to be believed in. God is very jealous. God says, my name is jealousy. You must worship him the way he wants to be worshipped. Why would God, if God wants us to be saved and loves us eternally and all these things, allow Satan to contort his image and his word, his pride, his jealousy, his ego, and his love for us? Should stop him, right? Should make him intervene and make sure his word is pure. But he doesn't do that. He allows Satan to twist and contort it. Why do you think that is?
Well, first off, God's ways is above our ways. So that's
so
one
just
thing the Bible
no
does
thoughts
say.
at all. Gotcha.
So well, no, I can finish the statement. But the thing about it is that, I mean, you can even look at the story of Job. I mean, I've seen people look at Job and then get so upset as, why did God do this? Why did he allow this situation to happen? You know, that type of thing. And there's going to be a lot of unanswerable questions whenever it comes to faith and religion. We can make theories and guesstimations, or we can, you know, try to figure out to try to understand why God does what he does. But
no, Adam, because I don't believe that a God is, much less does.
Yeah,
you're like thing, going over so many things, and then your God, you didn't get us anywhere in this conversation.
That's the thing, man. What I said about no thoughts at all, I wasn't insulting you. I was saying what you just said is what I like to call an everlasting thought stopper. Why, if this God is the most intelligent being in the universe, the definition of love itself, why would he allow his arch nemesis that he also made and also knows is going to do all these things because he knows everything? Why would he allow this arch nemesis to contort his word so that people who love God and want to follow God will be led farther away from that God and will be burned for all eternity because they did it wrong? That makes no sense. That isn't love. That isn't intelligence. That is nothing. And you, rather than grappling with the logic of that reality, just say, well, God's ways are above our ways. That's you're just deliberately refusing to think about what this God is actually doing.
No,
I have
honestly,
a different question for you after you answer that.
I was continuing my answer, but actually it's because it's a separation. Basically, God separates the wheat from the chaff in ways.
And there would be more wheat. There would be more wheat if his message were pure, which he could do. In fact, that's what Islam claims he did. He sent another angel and said the Bible is corrupted. This is now the perfect last version of it. So,
Adam,
like, sorry, go ahead.
If you believe, sorry, I know it's all confusing. If you believe, Adam, that this God is separating the wheat from the chaff, if you believe in the God that I think you believe in, which is an all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God, then this God knew when it created the wheat and the chaff, which was going to be which, and that means you are actively choosing to worship a God that created me, knew before he knit me together in my mother's womb that I was going to end up in hell for all of eternity, and he said, you know what, I'm going to make her anyways. That's a fucked up God, and that's a fucked up thing to worship.
Yep.
Well, why? I mean, whenever he first created man and he told us to be fruitful and multiply, I mean, he gave us the perfect
if I went,
he gave us
if I was
immortality, and all we had to do was one rule.
Nope. Adam, if I could have all the same powers as God, and I sat here and I decided to make a being, knowing in my head that this being is going to end up burning in hell for all of eternity. Is that fucked up of me to create that being?
Well, if you had unlimited foreknowledge, who knows what decisions you would actually make, because you don't.
Another thought
Adam,
stopper.
if I
just
knew,
answer
so
her
Adam,
question.
if I knew, if I just asked it very clearly, if I knew that being was going to end up burning in hell for all of eternity, would that be fucked up of me to create that being anyways?
If you knew that they would end up in hell and then you created them, were they in hell by their own choice, or were they in hell by your forced decision?
Adam, let's say it's their choice. Let's say they're going to choose hell, and I know that, and they're going to burn for eternity. Is it fucked up of me to create that being that otherwise wouldn't exist knowing that?
No.
This is a yes or no question. That's not fucked up.
No. Why would it be?
This is the thing, man.
So you think it's okay to create something just to torture it? That's actually really not, like, you should talk to somebody about that.
That's pretty
horrific. I didn't. If they choose the path themselves, I don't understand how I'm torturing them.
Let me try a more concrete example. Maybe this will help. Say I record a football game. There's a football game on TV. I record it. And I spend the next 5 years watching that same football game on repeat over and over and over. I know everything there is to know about this football game. I know every step that every player ever makes. I know every second. You could give me any one individual half of a second of the game, and I can tell you exactly what's going on, where everybody is, what's happening. All the players are acting on their own free will. They had free choice. They did everything they wanted to based on their choice. Now, I press play on the game and I say, if this team loses, I'm going to punish them. Is that justice? Is that moral?
Well, how do you know God did that?
He didn't ask that. That's not the question. He's asking you about this hypothetical.
Yes. God knows everything. God knows who's going to hell before they're even created. That's what Eve was just saying. God makes people knowing that they are going to freely make choices, and those free choices are going to land them in hell, and he makes them anyway. So, analog, just a little analogy here. If I know who's going to win the football game, and I say, if this other team loses, I will punish them. They still have freedom of choice. They're still making their own decisions. They still lose the game. I knew from the beginning they would. And I am now punishing them for their free choices. Is that wrong of me?
Wait, so you don't think hell was created originally for Satan and his angels?
Someday, Adam, at some point in your life, you are going to need to answer a question that somebody asks you. And I hope that it's an easier one than these.
Answered them
because
all.
It's genuine. No, you have
not.
No,
you haven't.
I am asking you a straightforward question. God knows before he makes someone whether or not they're going to hell. He is all-knowing. That's what that means. If he chooses to make that person anyway, he is making them for the purpose of them going to hell. I am asking you, and Promise is asking you, is it morally right for God to make people knowing that they are going to be tortured for eternity no matter what? They are freely going to put themselves there. He knows the outcome, and he makes them anyway. Is that a morally correct thing for him to do?
Well, let's say in a football game, no. In life where you sin against the perfect God,
Adam,
then yes.
So Adam,
I mean, how many times do I have to
I want to point something out. You haven't answered. That's why we keep asking. You can go back and listen to the call. It's actually
yours.
kind of,
I said
it's nice
no.
because
I answered his. I said
I'm in the
yes.
middle of talking. I'm in the middle of a sentence. So we have asked you these things and you've skirted around. If you go listen to the call, we can almost hear you running away from each question over and over and over again because you have to fit it into your dogma. I understand what that's like. I have been there. It's exhausting, but it's exhausting to engage in as well. The nice part is you're doing our job for us because this makes for great clips when people get to hear over and over and over again theists absolutely unable to engage honestly with the conversation and answer us. Some theists do that, and I love those conversations because then they say, yeah, you know what? I don't know. That's a good point. Thanks for pointing that out. What do you think about blah, blah, blah? And then we go back and forth and back and forth. But you, I believe, are smarter than the answers that you are not giving us, and that's why you're scared of them and skirting away, and it's very frustrating.
I've answered you. I don't understand.
You've given us half-assed answers if you answer them at all, and it's usually just another sermon or another thought stopper.
I just told you in the hypothetical of a football game, no. And then I told you in the in reality of what this is, choosing sin over a perfect God, then yes, he has every right to do that. That is two.
I didn't ask if he has the right. We didn't ask if he has the right. We did not ask if he has the right. We asked if that's morally right to do, not if he has the right. Can he do it? Sure, apparently that's what you think. But is it moral? Do you, Adam, think that that is moral? If you were God, would you do that?
If I was absolutely perfect, then I would have to do that.
Gross.
That's
Let me tell you, man.
Repulsive.
Yeah, here's the thing, dude. You mentioned earlier, like, you think that Satan contorted God's word, and that's why we have all these different denominations of Christianity. Let me tell you just very quickly before the last little bit of the show here. If I was Satan, I would do the same thing. If I was Satan and there really was a God, and God really did have his word published and all these things, I would do the same thing. I would make sure that I twisted and contorted that word so that the wrong religion would spread. And I would make sure that number one, I would make sure that everybody believed in Satan. I would make sure that Christians believed they were winning if they believed in Satan. I would spread the message that the greatest lie the devil ever told is that he didn't exist. So people thought they were getting a leg up on me by believing in me. And then I would do everything I could to convince everybody that I was God and that God was me. And I would put out a book. I would make sure that the Bible had a God that is hateful and genocidal and tells people to kill every man, woman, child, infant, baby, ass, horse, cattle, everybody. Eliminate entire civilizations. I would make sure that the God of the Bible is homophobic and says that if a man lies with another man, that it's an abomination, their blood is upon them. I would make sure the God of the Bible is misogynistic. I would make sure the God of the Bible talks about how women can't have power, women can't control the church, women can't have authority, women should be submissive, I would make sure the God of the Bible is so misogynistic that in the original sin story, he punishes Adam almost not at all, and then punishes Eve by making her have painful childbirth and be subjugated and must be subservient to men. I would make sure the God of the Bible is racist and xenophobic and evil and malevolent and egotistical. I would make the God of the Bible say shit like, my name is jealous. I would make the God of the Bible set children on fire for putting the wrong type of incense in an incense burner, and then command those children's parents not to grieve them, lest they and their entire community be killed as well. That's some real shit in the Bible that God did. I would make the God of the Bible drown every living creature on earth because he was regretful that he had created humans. I am so upset that I had these children. I'm going to kill them and everybody else except for one tiny incestuous family. I'm going to make the God of the Bible loaded with incest stories. The Bible's going to be loaded with stories about incest, loaded with stories about rape, loaded with stories about genocide, loaded with pedophilia. I'm going to make the God of the Bible rape a girl too. Mary could not have consented. That's a power dynamic that we wouldn't allow today. That is statutory rape. That's not okay. I would make the God of the Bible the most evil motherfucker I probably could, and then tell everybody to worship him. And I would tell everybody that Satan is the one that wants you to love everybody, the one that wants you to be gender inclusive, the one that wants you to love trans people, the one that wants you to love gay people, the one that wants you to welcome, new cultures and be critical thinking, the one that wants bodily autonomy for people with uteruses, all these different things. That's all Satan. All the good shit, that's what the devil wants. And God is the one that wants you to be hateful and racist and homophobic and xenophobic and transphobic and misogynistic. That's what I would do if I was Satan. And look what we got. We got a book that meets the mark, that fits the bill perfectly for Satan contorting your religion into the thing that you believe now. Tell me I'm wrong, Adam, and tell me why.
Well, I believe that you should absolutely believe that. I mean, we follow our fathers. So, I mean, if your father is the devil, then this is exactly what you go.
And that's why I know you worship Satan. You worship Satan, and you abandon God.
You worship Satan type of debate? I mean,
no, I'm telling you, the God of the Bible that you believe in is actually Satan, and Satan has contorted this word to make you believe in a false religion. That's what you already said you believe most people believe. You said you believe most people already believe that most people have already fallen prey to this trap. I'm saying you did too. Tell me why I'm wrong.
It's just an accusation. What am I supposed to
prove me wrong?
You're wrong on what?
Yeah. So you got nothing.
On an
prove me wrong
that you made. Okay. You've made.
Adam, you made the same assumption. He's just using your argument against you, and you can't even pay attention enough to see that. He just did to you what you've been trying to do to us this whole conversation, and you can't take an honest look at it and see that.
And I did what you did to billions of Christians around the world. I just said the same thing back to you. I just said it cooler. Anyway, Adam, this is going nowhere very quickly, and
I've
it
heard
has
that
been for the past
argument.
30 minutes. So we're going to move on. If you want to actually try, like, really seriously thinking about the things you're saying and give us an actual answer for any of them, we'd love to talk to you again. But right now, it sounds like you are trapped in this just cycle of dogma where you're coming up with reasons why everybody else is wrong because Satan, but you're right because Jesus. And it's fucking lazy, man. So I hope you do better next time. Call us back sometime, okay?
I'm sorry, is the call over now? Is no response?
It was gonna be. I was gonna let you say a thing. I was gonna let you say goodbye or whatever, but I don't have to if you don't want me to.
Oh no, I mean if you guys are done, then that's fine. I'll move on so you guys can get to someone else.
Okay, bye.
Bye, Adam. Thank you for showing up with the true gospel at the end there so that you can save us from heaven and make sure we all go safely to hell, which sounds like a much better place to be. Because if that's what's so frustrating and shocking to me. I don't know why it's shocking. I need to stop being surprised by this. But for Adam to answer that that's totally morally fine of a God to do that, either Adam is deeply unwell and needs to talk to somebody. I would venture to say that's probably not the case here because I bet, as he said, that would be wrong in any other scenario. He is just allowing for psychopathy and horrific behavior because of this one piece of dogma he has that he has to cling to. And it's really frustrating to see right in your face why some of these people will practice and believe such horrible things like bigotry because they have made allowances for this narrative. And also, now we're going to hell. So good job, Adam.
You know what? I've met some of the people that are going to heaven, and I'm good. I'm so
good.
I love that Stephen Fry bit. He was talking to a bunch of, I think he was talking to Mormons, and they were like, don't you understand? If when you go to heaven, you're surrounded by all your relatives, all your family members for eternity. He's like, okay, well, what happens if I'm good? And they're just shut down the conversation. It's great, man. With that, promise, amiga mia, do you have any last things you want to throw out here? Any questions, comments, concerns, things you want to announce?
Just a reminder that the AD show is on at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time tonight. It's going to be with Matt and Jimmy. It's going to be awesome, I'm sure. If you didn't get your call in today, call back tonight.
Yep.
I look forward to dropping in when I can and listening to some of those callers. But thanks so much, Forrest, for co-hosting with me today. I always love doing the show with you, and it was nice hanging out with all of you. Thank you so much to our producer, Amargan. You're the best. Our call screener also was Amargan, so thanks for doing double duty. And thank you so much to the mods in the chat and everybody else who shows up here every week and supports us in all the ways that you do.
Yeah, Promise totally just said duty. Also, thank you to Faya Halo for doing the timestamps. They're awesome, and I probably said their name wrong again. I'm sorry. And thank you to the people who will now come into the comments section to start dumbass fights and boost our numbers and get our algorithm up there. We appreciate that.
You all.
You're always good to have fans like you. Have an awesome rest of your day and never stop learning. Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys.